righty, I think we're ready to go. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of mine heart be acceptable in your sight. He is our strength and our redeemer, and it is in his name, which is his authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's message. Amen. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi. ¿Cómo está? Bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi. Ça va? Ni hao, namaste, Osaina Kitawaya, Ohio, I see you, Manut, Guan, Kamsa, Kamsamida, Aloha, Ciao, Ensemble, Privet, Habarigani, Akwaba, Madaase, Itasen, Jambo, Mimini Kofi, Dinafrako Katana the Wewe, Boker To, Boker Tav, greetings, salutations, grand rising, Bakwar Tav, Reishan Shalom, Anaik of Aik, Gelet, it's of Christ, Teda, Mashapachi, Teda, Testaik at Mashapachi at Yachadasham. Shalom and peace, everybody. I am Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being the voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. Thank you for being on. We give our honor and praise once again to the Most High, Yahweh Elohim. We give our praise and honor to Him for my wife, the Honorable Mind, who lives a life that is able to be honored. As always, you can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. My apologies for running late. I had to take care of some things this rising, so I tried to make sure I put out there that we'd be on around 8:15 or so on the email. So prayerfully everybody receives that, and prayerfully we don't miss too many persons coming on today. But thank you for your presence, and once again, once again, my apologies for being being tardy. But we're gonna get into this word. Praise Yah. It's Sunday, so we normally go a little longer anyways. Not because Sunday is, treated like Shabbat, right, for us, but because Sunday we just happen to have a little more time. So we'll do all these different things, whatever. Here you go. I'm sorry, you said question. If you lost your house, career, and partner, would you still think Elohim? I'm at rock bottom. Yeah, actually, to answer your question, Sam, and I don't understand why I can't even get past the introduction. But the whole thing is to say that you shouldn't believe in a higher power, whatever the case might be, or the specific one I believe in. You're actually years too late. I've already been through that and thanked him and learned more about myself and realized that what you consider to be rock bottom, right, is just part of life. There's ebbs and flows. And there could be reasons why you might have been part of the problem to get to that condition or otherwise. But whether you believe in a higher power or not, accountability helps out a lot in that. Number one, to see what mistakes have you made and what part did you play. But then also, just in general, if my faith is only based upon what I see, then it's not true faith, right? Not faith to the extent that I'm trying to at least obtain and to live inside of. So, now one can disagree or agree with that all they like. But yeah, if you talk about me personally, you're already late in my life. Been there, done that. I've been there, done that, right? Been homeless on the street, had to live in tents, had to have lost my wife and stuff before. Had somebody say some crazy stuff about me, and I had to go to prison, even though I didn't do what they accused me of. Had to go through waiting for the right to a speedy trial, and then after that, matter of fact, the grand jury for the beginning said I never even did anything and shouldn't even go to trial. But because I am a pastor in the area that I was in, they were trying to make it a newsworthy thing and everything. Had to start over from scratch. I've had several times, even what we talk, use these platforms we use today, take us down because we simply said things that were actually accurate and true. And at the end of the day, we still are back and are still functioning and helping persons around the world. So yeah, you're years late on that. If that's the whole thing of that should question me or this and that, or question my walk. Been there, done that. Right. But anyways, as far as what today is, once again, we give all honor and praise to the Most High in spite of. And we give all praise and honor to Him for my wife, the Honorable Mind, who lives a life that's able to be honored. As always, you can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, and her website at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. If you'd like to, if you can, turn with me in your Bibles to Revelation chapter 2, verse 8. We'll get ready to say our Bible pledge in a little bit, and then we'll go ahead and get it in. All right, but welcome to everybody. Welcome. So, that's the answer to your question. Whether you like it or not, or agree with it or not, it is what it is. But that's the answer that I have, since you said it's a personal question, right? Or you asked a personal question. So thank you, everybody, for being on. Very much so appreciate your presence. Thank you for all of you who are doing things behind the scenes. Today is family day for me, so obviously after we finish this, I don't have anything scheduled. That being said, right after this, what we would like to, or I'm sorry, on Monday, tomorrow, we will have our early rising Bible study session. We'll have our live session. We'll have our evening live session, and then in the evening we will have our project management meeting. So we're thankful and grateful to the Most High for that. And thank you everybody and those who were part of the international meeting last night. We were told that the money that you guys have been given was officially given over to the children that were helping out in Rwanda. So they did receive the stuff and everything as of the 27th, and they were thankful and grateful. So we shall continue to use part of what we make to make sure that what part of what we're given rather to give to those children and stuff, and try to help them out and help our diaspora around the world. So thank you for that. Thank you for all your donations and things that you give. And we'll continue to do all those things and becoming a nation for this year. # We Be the Nation, which is the focus of what we're going to talk about today. So once again, we're going to get ready to rise to our feet and say our Bible pledge. However you're able to reverence the word of Yah, whether you're able to rise or whether you're sitting still or you're tired or you're on your job, just listening, whatever. We're going to get ready to say it together. We're going to jump right in. Once again, if you can turn to Revelation chapter 2, verse 8. I also praise Yah and thankful to the ministerial staff for being faithful and true to what we're called to do, and making sure that they met up and continue to pray for each other. So we're thankful and grateful. We ask that you continue to lift up certain members, Sister Carla, Sister Austral, Sister Andrea, Brother Stephen, Minister Moselle, Auntie Marion, everybody that you can. I know there's many of us going through many different things. Minister Keaton, her family still as well. Our family as well, if you can keep us lifted up. Right, but thank you for being on. And thank you everybody for allowing me to be human and take care of some family stuff real quick. I had to take care of before we got on today. So thank you for allowing me to take care of my house the way that I'm supposed to. All praises to the Most High. So we're going to go to, once again, Revelation chapter 2, verse 8. Get ready to say our Bible pledge. And let's say shalom to everybody real quick. Thank you for being on all the platforms, whether you're watching us live later on, just listening in for the first time, whatever the case might be. Thank you so much for being on. Shalom, shalom, shalom. Peace, peace. How you doing, Keith, Tamika, Carla, Allison? Call it all joy. Come on. Brother Alton, Minister Tracy, Double OG, Triple OG, Mignon, Dabada. Sister Deborah, respect, Sister Deborah, Jonah, Sister Deborah, Raven Fire, Linda Jefferson, Dr. Jamaica Does, Megan, Godway, okay, interesting. How you doing, Brother Cole? Be Your Own Light, Keith, Jerry, Sky Tompkins, and if I miss anybody, charge to my head, not to my heart. Also, thank you, brethren. Excellent men's meeting last night. Thank you for chiming in. We thank Brother Torino as well, and those brothers who are ready to help and move with him as he's getting ready to, as he's helping us out. So it was just to make, let those know, just in case you weren't there. By the way, sisters, I guess you're invited, but it's going to be, actually, you know what? I'm not in charge. We'll see. It might be men only. I'm not in charge. Brother Torino's taking over. I'm just helping wherever he needs me to help. So keep us in prayer though. Men's meeting. It looks like we're meeting up in November. I forget the dates. It's November 20th through the 22nd, or 22nd through something, but somewhere around that Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that weekend, we're looking at meeting up physically. Of course, we'll do it virtually as well. We're looking at meeting up together towards the end of November, and Philadelphia looks like the place that we're going to meet up at. So if you're able to save some money up and everything in advance, and also too, even if you think it might be something that, even though it's far away, it might be difficult for you to save up for, let us know, even if you'd like to come. Because just because you think that within yourself you might not be able to come, it doesn't mean that somebody can't have your back. That happens quite a bit. So, I remember when I used to go to men's meetings and stuff, I'd pay sometimes for 2 or 3 other brothers, even if they were strangers. I just put it in and be like, hey, if somebody says they want to come on, right? And that was when I was making a whole lot less, than what I'm blocked with now, and so, you can find ways, put your mind to it to be able to come. But, some of us brothers might be able to look out for you as well. We want to see as many brothers as possible. This is, we didn't get a chance to meet physically last year. We met up in 2024. So prayerfully we'll build upon what we've been doing, the momentum, and we love to see you. And from what I'm hearing so far, man, the planning that I'm hearing, the ideas, the vision that I'm hearing, it's going to be amazing. So if you're a brother, come on in. I know the sisters, you have yourself from Women in Red too, right? But I'm just talking about the brothers. Don't forget also Passover. We need information. Form needs to be filled out. If you haven't seen it, it's going to be posted again. So matter of fact, I will post it today after the live session. You will get another Google Calendar invite to fill out the form for Passover. That's going to be in Eastern Tennessee. All right. Also for next year coming up, July the 18th, we're going to be up around that time in New York. So if you haven't been baptized or you just want to come out and say hello or see us do baptisms for some of the others we're going to be doing it for, feel free to come out and hang out, have that ready. So if you're in the New York area, I think it's going to be New York, like actually New York City. So if you want to come out, we should be in that area if you can get close over there. It looks like, not 100% sure yet, but it does look like we have a spot to do a little mini revival, and also another spot to do a service for Pentecost in Detroit, or basically right outside in the outskirts of Detroit, but basically Detroit. So if you want to join us there, if you want to start getting that together, I think that's May the 30th. I believe that's May the 30th. So if you want to plan on coming to those, so those are a couple places. So those places we know for sure. April 1st Passover, being in Eastern Tennessee. A few days later, trying to travel up and go to Kentucky to be able to go to for a Feast of Unleavened Bread, visit the replica of Noah's Ark. So if you want to come to that or both, then Memorial Day meetup is going to be in Savannah, Georgia. So where the church is, where they did Field Order 15, 40 Acres and a Mule, and all that stuff is over there. And to see some of the stuff with the Hebrew characters written on the pews and all that stuff, that'll be Memorial Day meetup this year. So Memorial Day weekend, we'll be going over that way. And Pentecost is written in stone, or well, not written in stone, but almost there. Where we're looking at not only on May 30th, Pentecost doing Pentecost there, but even a couple days, we're trying to see if we can actually do a little bit of a mini revival beforehand, and then way down we know we're going to be in Georgia for the Feast of Tabernacles, and then men's meeting, we're looking at meeting up in Philadelphia in November, towards the end of November. So we have places that are starting to go with these dates that we've been telling you to hold aside. So if any of those things, or brothers in black, for the brothers. Not sure if sisters are invited. A lot of times sisters are invited to those things, but obviously we'll be focused on the brothers. All those things will be virtual as well. So just kind of keep those things in mind. The only two things therefore, as far as physical meetups we're doing for the holy days that we don't know for sure yet, is Feast of Trumpets and the Day of Atonement. Both of those will be in September. I'm pretty sure. Right? I got to double check. I'm pretty sure both of those are in September, or pretty close, like the beginning of October, end of September. All right? So we praise Yah. We're thankful and grateful to each and every one of you. We'll probably go down to Texas for one of those, and we'll probably go to Florida for one of those too. So kind of keep that in mind as far as certain dates. Besides us just traveling and seeing some persons and us trying to do more about meeting up on a regular basis. Also, too, don't forget those of you that are in like Baltimore area. Well, really, if you want to travel, you can always come on. But if you're from Baltimore, kind of going down to where the DMV is, we're working on next week having a couple meetings, really with everybody, but focusing some of that meeting on trying to do some Zoom meetings for you guys, and eventually doing a couple of meetups within the next 1 or 2 months. So we got a lot moving, a lot going, a lot grooving. There's something else we were invited. We were talking about maybe we'll go somewhere. I have to double check. We might be in an area close to some of you guys soon as well. So maybe if some of you guys want to say hello or something like that. But we'll let it be known. Y'all know how we do, led by Spirit. But give you a heads up so you know those dates. All right. I know. So real quick, we're about to do the Bible plays, but just real quick, one more again. So Passover is April 1st, Eastern Tennessee. Feast of Unleavened Bread, we'll celebrate that there as well, as far as the first day. But then during that period, sometime we're going to come up and we're going to go and see the replica. So if you want to come along with us to see the replica of Noah's Ark, you can. Memorial Day meetup is going to be Savannah, Georgia, at the famous church where the Hebrew characters and the Israelites actually built their own church while they were actually enslaved, some of them as they were becoming free. and we'll get a history lesson and be able to walk through and do all that stuff amongst being able to spend some time walking around the whole city as well. Um, Pentecost, we're looking at, it looks like it's pretty close to being secure, where we're going to do that in Detroit. And have a little mini revival beforehand if you want to show up for that, to help us out with that and be able to give the word to others who are in need in the community and society, and help us to advertise possibly even as well, or invite some folk with to come with us. That'll also be close enough for those of you. I know it's a 3-hour trip for some of you who we have in the Ohio family, but y'all can come over there, if you want, for that date. So get that date in mind. We have persons in obviously Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin, Minnesota. I think we got some persons in Iowa. Iowa is a lot bigger of a trip, but if you would like to come over, see if you can set aside that date. Maybe you want to think of like March 28th through the 30th, something like that, or through the 31st, because through the 31st we're going to go and support another group that we partner with as well. And who knows, whenever we show up, I'll just be trying to sit down, but they might ask us to give a word, so who knows, we might do that. But yeah, so and then after that, Pentecost, May 30th, and then we know for sure in November the men's meetup, the Brothers in Black, that will be in we're looking at doing that in Philadelphia, or possibly there's a resort that's in the same area. There's a resort that Lancaster that's a little further away, but if you're riding and driving and you're coming off the exit, it's pretty close, right? Also too, I'll double check, because if we have young brothers that you want to come, young boys and stuff, I'll double check that I'm not in charge. I'm just relaying information. Praise Yah. Praise Yah that I don't have to be in charge of everything, right? That being said, I'll check and see if it's okay for us to bring boys, or what age, or certain things like that, because even our boys need to be part of this stuff as well. So we'll figure all those things out, and if you are bringing young boys, or if you need them to have a place to stay, or we can try and start working on those accommodations as soon as we have a little more information. All right, but welcome everybody once again. Thank you for being on. How you doing, Sister Monica? Welcome, Colin, Brother Jermaine, Sister Shirley, Sister Beth, Minister Tasmaya Larray, how you doing? Abdul Rahman Marase, I'm not sure if I'm saying it right. 76, thanks for being part of the community. Taladi Dadi and everybody. Brother Yahassam, right? Taladi Dadi and everybody. Let's get into this. All right, let's get into this. Praise Yah. All praises to the Most High. We're going to go to Revelation chapter 2, verse 8. If you have your Bible ready to go, let's get ready to say our Bible pledge. Thank you for saying and waiting and being patient for me as I told you to rise to your feet a while ago. But wanted to make sure that you guys know we're moving already. We're moving in Yehovah's word. Revelation chapter 2, verse 8 is where we're going to start today. We're going to read verses 8 through 11, and then we're going to focus on Smyrna. All right, you can put your Bible or your right hand or your device in the air. Just repeat after me. This is my Bible. This is my sword. In this will I trust. For Yahshua is Lord. No sword of God shall ever be heard. For this is my Bible, and this is Yah's word. Hacham Yehovah. Amen. With Yehovah Sham, let it be done unto us. His name is authority. Let's read Revelation chapter 2, verse 8. It reads as follows. It says, "And unto the angel of the assembly in Smyrna write, these things saith the first and the last, which was dead and is alive. I know thy works, and tribulation, and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Judah, and are not, but are the synagogue of the Satan. Fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that ye may be tried, and ye shall have tribulation 10 days. 10 days. What are those 10 days? We're going to get into that. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life. He that hath an ear, let him hear what Ravak saith unto Quadasham. He that overcometh shall not be hurt of the second death. That means we got to talk about the second death again today. All praises to the Most High for his word, for the revelation of his son, for the sacrifices of his son. May Yahweh continue to barak those who and to who, as Revelation 1 verse 1, or Revelation chapter 1 tells us rather, may he barak those who readeth this, who heareth this, and who what? Who keepeth this. You may be seated to go back to what you're doing in the presence of the Most High Yah. Amen. Alrighty. Revelation chapter 2, verses 8 through 11. This is a doozy for us, because a lot of persons don't like going over this part, especially those of us raised with certain Christian sensibilities and different things. Those of us who have lived so long trying to talk about that the Most High, Christ himself even, doesn't care about Israel. That Israel is lost. That grace is the only thing that abounds somehow. Right? Our Galatians series has been showing us even, some of that now is unraveling before us if we just simply look at the word of Yahweh and we keep it. Right? But what does the word say in here? We're dealing with Smyrna. Now, this is Smyrna, the second mentioned of 7 cities. These 7 cities, once again, they represent so much more than just some words on the page, right? And eventually I will make sure we have a map up for you guys to see as well. How you doing, Sister Bet? Right? But these 7 cities are crucial because these 7 cities, when we read Revelation, are telling us distinctly and specifically and righteously, right, that these are being shown as an overview, if you will, or a microcosm, if you will, whichever way you want to look at it, as what is going on worldwide today with the children of Israel and those who are grafted in, and what we're dealing with, the influences we deal with. So if you recall, we went over Ephesus yesterday, and we went deep into not only Ephesus, right, of Asus, but Ephesus. Not only did we go deep into talking about what the Ephesians are going through, we not only went into what Ephesians were talked about, not just by John, but by Paul when he wrote an epistle unto them to talk about love because they had lost their first love. But also we had to study the history of it. And when we study the history, because persons will tell you everything in the Bible is made up until we start actually indicating, well, Ephesus was an actual city, right? And it was part of something called the Pergamine dynasty. Matter of fact, the next city we'll talk about, the next group of Yehudasha'al that is scattered somewhere, that's dealing with one of these influences that we need one of the 7 spirits to talk to, and that the angels who've been given assignments should be given them this particular revelation, this way of evangelizing. We'll talk about them. They are the head of what's called the Pergamine dynasty. At one point, all 7 cities were under the city of Pergamos. So if you mention Ephesus, that's part of the Pergamine dynasty. If you mention Smyrna, which we're talking about today, that's part of the Pergamine dynasty. If you mention Pergamos, Pergamine dynasty. If you mention Thyatira, Pergamine dynasty. Sardis, Pergamine dynasty, right? If you're talking about Philadelphia, right? Pergamine dynasty. If you're talking about Laodicea, Pergamine dynasty. These are all part of the same dynasty. And the Pergamine dynasty is important to know about because in Pergamos is a place to where they had Balaam and Nicolaitan doctrine. Now we're going to go deep into that tomorrow. But long story short, Balaam doctrine and Nicolaitan doctrine. Balaam doctrine is doctrine to where persons use their positions of being called by the Most High, and they pervert the word because they're paid by man to give you a different version of the message than what the Most High himself is telling us to say. Not only that, but they do it specifically, strategically, to make sure that Israel is stumbled by the word and will never become the nation we're supposed to be. And since this year, #We Be the Nation, we comprehend that any Balaam doctrine is a serious, not only offense, but attack on us, and somebody trying heavily to thwart the mentality of Yehudasha'al, to thwart the inheritance of Yehudasha'al. Yes, Yehashua is Adon, right? Our Messiah is Lord, right? So that being said, right, they're trying their best to thwart what it is, and we come against Balaam doctrine. Right, we have to, right? But the Balaam doctrine is at the center, the central hub, Pergamos, the place that is in charge of all this, right? That's what we're dealing with. Also dealing with Nicolaitan doctrine. We talked about yesterday that if we go by in a connotative fashion, Nicolaitans are basically persons who use their power to abuse the lay folk. But also, even if you just look historically, Nicolaitans were very famous for trying to take things that were not pagan and trying to take away the roots that were natural and take what was there and take the plant and put it in new soil and have that plant now rooted in pagan doctrine. How you doing, Brother Kobe? How you doing, Queen Lee Boston? So this is what we're dealing with all the assemblies, right? But each of these 7 assemblies, there are 7 major influences spiritually that are happening, which is why from the throne of Yahshua, there must be 7 spirits. There's a spirit that needs to go to each one to deal with these other spiritual influences. So when John is saying this to us and giving this message to the angels of each assembly, or to the messengers that are supposed to give this message to each assembly, those angels, including myself, right? If we be the preachers, the messengers, we are supposed to make sure we give a direct message, right? According to Revelation, according to what we revel in, according to what we rejoice in. How you doing, Empress? We're supposed to give a direct message to these things to make it very clear, right, that we who follow the Most High must do these things to escape the things that are near coming and must come, according to Revelation chapter 1. Right? How you doing, Brother Leonard? So this is why we must recognize these things, and who shall believe our report becomes a mandatory saying, a mandatory cry, a mandatory thing in our hearts, because we have been so busy receiving word from everybody else that we forgot that we're supposed to be the ones reporting. You know, it's kind of like we've been listening to Fox News and CNN and CSNBC and NBC and ABC and CB. I'm sorry, I don't know. I'll miss something somewhere, right? But we've listened to all these persons, Al Jazeera and BBC News and this and that. We listen to everybody else, but who shall believe our report? And why is it that we have been trained, or at least we have even accepted even, why is it that we're okay with accepting this weird position, which is, hey, we'll put more stock in what they have to say about us than we do, right? How is it that somebody can be the father of medicine even though Imhotep built? How is it that they'll tell you that herbalism doesn't matter, but Avila persons were persons that were considered to be healers even in times of Kemet? Why is it that we get everybody else's language, but we don't think it's important to learn our own language? But when it comes to etymology, we want to learn as much Greek and Latin as possible. Right? How you doing, Pinky Gigi? And hey, how you doing, babe? My wife is on the Honorable Minds. Always check her out on TikTok, YouTube, and website at Bloom and Flourish, not A and D, the letter N. Bloom and Flourish. Thank you for being on. Right? How you doing, Megan? And thank y'all for the reposts, any likes, shares, subscriptions, hitting notification tabs, becoming part of the community in any way, shape, or form. We honor you today. Thank you for being on with us. Right, thank you for those who have been doing the shout out and stuff as well. We've been doing very well. Thank you, babe. We've been doing very well as far as getting back to you guys. So hopefully that continues. We want to make sure this year we focus. Hashtag we be the nation. We be the nation. It's time for this nation manifestation. Oh, I like that. That might be one of the shirts that need to come out. Nation manifestation. I like that. Ooh, I like that. That might have to be next year. Somebody might have to take note of that and bring that back to my attention. You remember you said nation? That might be the next step. My greatness. Hashtag we be the nation next year. Hashtag nation manifestation. I like that. I felt that in my shundo. All right. Yeah. So how you doing, Sister Casey? Welcome to everybody coming in here. How you doing? Is it Ellis? Ellis, the messenger? You said what relation? What religion? I'm a follower of the way. I'm a follower of the word. Right? Being Yechada Sha'al, we're supposed to be where heaven meets earth. Right? Kingdom of heaven inside of us. Right? We're made of earth. Genesis 28, all that great stuff. Shalom, Sister Renee. How you doing? Right? Right? And yes, I get, once again, if I use the word blessing or somebody use the word blessing on here, we try to use the word barak, right? But you guys understand it's blessing. Blessing has a negative connotation. And you know, especially if we're talking about Germanic. Now, there are different versions that the word comes from as well, but either way, right? If you're somebody that's just catching on, just like if somebody comes in here talking about Jesus, 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 we don't worship Jesus because Jesus means half man, half Zeus. We know who you're talking about, though. And if you're genuinely trying to get better, come on in and genuinely try to get better, right? Okay. So, and all these things that we're talking about, right? In the Barak is upon us. and through the word, and only those who do this word, right? It says that those who are going to be barak through this word, barak atzara, must what? Read, hear, and keep. Keep means to watch or to guard over, right? So we must not just read this, and we must not just shema this, but we must keep it. I have to keep this word. And this word is signified. Once again, that means it was signed off on. So if it was signed off on to give unto us, and it means it is now assigned unto us. This is not for everybody. So let me also say this in the beginning of this, right? Just to help you out. I know many of you have heard me say this, but I'm going to say it one more again. This word, the Bible itself, is not for everybody and is not written unto everyone. It is written to a specific people or a specific nation or a specific family of believers who are willing to make sure that Yehovah is put first, right? 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 That we put Elohim first, right? And that we keep his commandments, and that we do so not because we worship the law, but because we worship the one who provided the law. If we worship the one who provided the law, then we follow the law, not because we worship the law, but because we worship the moral lawgiver. And if you have a different form of morality, then this is not for you. Yes, this is one of them today, right? Because we're going to talk about Smyrna today, and it's heavy. But we're going to be tight and right at the same time. See, because Smyrna introduces something to us, and we were lied to. A person told us, oh, no. When it's talking about there, when it mentions Judah, it's really talking about anybody. I don't know. Judah is specific. Matter of fact, when you read later on in Revelation, you will discover that in Revelation, we have to be honest about the fact that David is on a throne. Judah is on a throne in Revelation. Uh-oh. Right? Is that... read your Bible, it'll block you, right? So if Judah is on the throne, and how you doing, divine design? If Judah is on the throne, if David is on the throne, then Judah matters. When it says there are those that say they are Judah, because that's what it means when it says Jew, Yechavada, Yehudi, etc., right? Yechavada, depending on your dialect. When it says Judah, this is the same Judah. Watch this. Matter of fact, let's do this. Let's go to Romans chapter 3. Let's do this. Let's make a real quick trip. Holy Spirit, have your way today. Let this word be for your people, and those who have ears to hear, as it's going to say at the end of this, as it's going to say for every assembly of the 7 assemblies in Revelation 2 and 3, if you have ears to hear, let it be heard on today. This is for you. And if it's not heard on today, it's not going to be because I'm making something else. It's because you are not in a position yet to even shema Zara at Yehovah. You're not even in a position to hear the word of the Most High Yah. How you doing, Sister Toya? Right, Romans chapter 3. Romans chapter 3. I want to make sure you see this or hear this. So you cannot say today, oh, he was just making this up, blah, blah. The word doesn't say, no. We're going to learn today. Because we keep trying to get into Balaam doctrine. Once again, Balaam doctrine is when persons are paid gold or paid cash nowadays, or paid in views or whatever, right? Or paid to get some emotional sensibilities and tingly feelings and stuff. You like those tingly feelings that make you feel all right, but you don't want to be convicted. And you can't be convicted, by the way, for those of you who say, that word convicted me. And if you're convicted of a crime, you're guilty, you broke the law. So if you're convicted, by the way, Yechashua chastises those that he loves. So if I've been sent on assignment today with the signified or signed off on word, and it convicts you, if the shoe fits, wear it. If it doesn't, take it off. If the shoe fits and you need to wear this, repent. Okay? That's all it is. We're not saying you're going to... I have no heaven or hell to put anybody listening, watching, whatever it is. I have no heaven or hell to put you in, right? If you are doing wrong, repent. Repentance literally is this. Turn from your wicked ways, so that he might hear from heaven and he might heal our land. Because your land is my land and my land is your land. If we're the same people anyways, I'm trying to make sure that your land is not cursed, so I don't have to keep eating jacked up fruit and getting jacked up seed, jacked up word. All righty, Romans chapter 3, verse 1. We're going to read verses 1 and 2. It says this. You ready? It says, what advantage then hath Judah, or what you call the Jew? Is there an advantage to being Judah? How you doing, Shay? And then it says, or what profit is there of circumcision? That means of following the law. One who is circumcised is part of a community that follows the law. They're supposed to be the heads of their house, and right, men are circumcised, and so we boys are circumcised, right? Day number 8, after 7 days of seeing who we are, we get our name, we get our authorized, and we become circumcised. Once we're authorized, you're circumcised, showing that where the seed comes out of, ultimately, like referring to where the word comes out of, what will manifest out of you, should come from a clean or lawful place. Cameroon in the house, all right. So Romans chapter 3 is where I am. In Romans chapter 3, it says, what advantage then hath Judah? Is there an advantage to being Judah? And it says, or what profit is there of circumcision? Is there anything that you can get? Is there any profit of following the law? Here's Paul's answer. The same Paul we try to use to get away from this stuff. Paul's answer is, much every way. What does that mean? Much every way. Some of you might say it like this, much in every way, or in every way, or there's a whole lot of advantage in anything you can think of. Am I lying? Am I saying anything off? Is my etymology wrong? Is my translation and transliteration wrong today? How you doing, Bruder Richard? He starts off in verse 2. How you doing, Jaslow? He says, there's an advantage much every way. Any way you look at it, there's an advantage to being Judah. And there's an advantage to following the law. That's what he said. Whatever version you say, if your version's saying something different, you might want to check that version out. But I'm pretty sure it's not going to disagree with what I just said, right? And I went to the wrong one. We're in Romans. Romans, right? What advantage then hath Judah? And what profit is there to following the law? Much every way, chiefly, mainly because... Chiefly, right? Chief, mainly, right? The person who leads, right? So chiefly, because that unto them, unto who? Unto Judah. Unto who? Unto those who follow the law, circumcised. Yes, there's an advantage. Because that unto them that were committed the prophecies of the Most High Yah. Not unto everybody. No, everybody had a chance to know the truth. Everybody had a chance to blah, blah. Everybody wasn't raised in this. Uh-oh. I'm trying to help you. This is what your Bible is saying. This is what Paul is saying. Paul is your man's until he's telling the truth. That's why Paul said in Galatians chapter 4, why is it that y'all are cool with me up until I tell you the truth? Y'all was fine with me when what I said matched whatever you wanted, whatever criteria you wanted. But when the same truth I've been telling now means that you got to look yourself in the mirror, why are you upset? It's going to be rough today for some. It's going to be rough. What they used to say is going to be tight, but it's going to be right. Why is it that the truth will set you free until... You know, they say that the truth will make you free. The truth shall set you free until freedom comes with responsibility. No. I don't want none of that. The truth will set you free until it comes with accountability. No, don't give me none of that. Oh, my greatness. That won't hurt me. Because I've done that before and sometimes still do it. Right? The truth should set you free until you have to respect women. Then, I can't have 7 to 1. Now I can't have 4 wives because Israel had 4 wives. And I can't have a side piece because, Abraham had a side piece. Well, they had a side piece. Isn't that the truth? Yeah, but the truth is not what they were walking in. That's true that they had it. It's a fact, but it's not the truth. Because the truth is that the Most High never ordained it and spoke against it. Just because he can work out all things for Tabah doesn't mean that you can do whatever you feel like doing. And just because somebody was able to be forgiven for something doesn't mean that you're supposed to try and do things on purpose to be forgiven. Because we are forgiven, we should strive that much harder to give our lives to the one that gave every last drop of blood, that we might not have to deal with the curses that come with dropping the ball and falling short and missing the mark. You call it sin. So we have an advantage because we are Israel, which also means that we have this advantage because of being Israel and being the law and following the law, rather, excuse me. That if we have an advantage because we are Israel, it also means we're held to a higher standard. Come on, beloved. Hashtag we be the nation. This is what comes with being a nation. When we keep talking about we're coming from the four corners of the world, of the earth, then be ready because you have an advantage. But also it means that you must recognize you're held to a higher standard. Come on, should we say knowingly? Y'all forbid. Come on, sis. Right? So we're held to a higher standard. Because grace, which is real, even though it doesn't mean what you think it is, but because grace is real, and really you should be more concerned with because mercy. That's what you really mean when you say grace. You think grace is unmerited favor. No, mercy is on your own merits. You don't deserve to be forgiven. But because of his mercy, which are new every rising, because of his mercies, plural, the plurality of his mercy, because of his mercies, I strive that much harder to make sure that what he's given me mercy for is not in vain. That's right. We're still paying for the disobedience of our ancestors too, by the way. Come on, Elder Maya, I see you. Right? They think he knows my heart is a pass for lawlessness. That's right. He knows my heart. He does. See, I don't know your heart. And if I can see that you're doing something wrong in the word and not even know your heart, imagine how much more so he's looking at it. This is why you got to stop focusing on the messenger. Focus on the one who sent the messenger. This is not even John's message. It's not even the messenger's message. It's not even the angel who gave it to John's message. It's Christ's message. It's his revelation. If you're arguing about this, you're arguing with him. And if you're arguing with him, then you're anti-Christ. So, all praises to the Most High. So, back to Revelation. We're going to jump around a little bit today because we got to be obedient. Revelation chapter 2, verse 8, it starts off by saying what? And unto, who is this unto? The messenger, the persons who have to give the message to which Quadischem, to which assembly. They have to give it to the assembly of Smyrna. Or Smyrna. I keep saying Smyrna. I think I even wrote it wrong. It should be, no, I had it right. Amen. All right, what am I doing there? Smyrna. Really, probably more like, no, Smyrna. We'll just say Smyrna. Just keep it simple for today. Smyrna. Smyrna is the second assembly we see addressed. The first assembly that we went over yesterday of Ephesus is the assembly that lost their first love. Yahweh is no longer where he's supposed to be. Their actions aren't correct according to what they're supposed to do in him. That's the assembly of Smyrna. I'm sorry, of Ephesus. Today we're focused on the assembly of Smyrna. Smyrna is an important assembly to know about because Smyrna has some things that have happened. Now, they were known as, I believe it probably would be Ionians, but today we might say Ionians, which, by the way, is an interesting thing because they actually, if you know music, anybody know music? If you've ever played an Ionian, if you've ever played a major scale, right? Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Right? You've ever done that? They consider that to be an Ionian scale. Right? Very beautiful, by the way. We like a lot of major stuff. If you've heard a lot of stuff that makes you go, ha, sometimes it's minor. You might not know that either, which would mean it's Aeolian, but you might not know it's actually Ionian, right? That's a Greek scale. It existed before them, but we credit them, right? So if you've ever heard that major scale, right? You ever heard Sound of Music, do, a dear, a female, dear, re. I don't even know all the words. It's the sun, right? Me a name, I call myself, I long way to run. All that. That's an Ionian scale. It's not heathen, right? By the way, but it comes from somewhere, right? No, so we're talking about Smyrna. So they were, and Shalom, how you doing, Elder Nice? Thank you for leading us in prayers always, earlier for the ministerial staff. All right, and I appreciate you. Had to get some things done, so thank you for always stepping up as you do. So this is, so the same persons who are Yonan or Ionian, right, were Smyrna. They had a city at one point, and they were actually destroyed by the city, those who would take over the city of Ephesus. Remember, the persons who started off in Ephesus, they actually started off as Hittites. We went over that yesterday. So they got some Canaanite in them, some Babylonian in them, and then it says that the Persians took over, and that's that statue with Daniel, right? That Daniel chapter 2. So Babylon was in Babylonian stuff was up in there, and then they had the Medes and the Persians take over, and then they had the Greeks take over, and now it's a Greco-Roman state, which really it's a Greek, it's Greek rulers who are puppets for the Roman estate, right? So you see Rome in there, and now you're starting to get the mixing of iron and clay. Christianity becoming something that's starting to pop up. How you doing, Maxwell? All praises, right? So Smyrna was eventually eradicated by the Greeks, wiped out, right? And so they were a very desolate land for a long time, for hundreds of years. For hundreds of years, Smyrna was basically almost nothing, right? But then Smyrna began to come back, right? And they became part of the Pergamum dynasty, part of this Greco-Roman rule. And now we're looking at the same type of thing that turns into Christianity, where it's a mixing and matching of iron and clay, the mixing and matching of values, right? So Smyrna has a problem because they, like many persons, they've been colonized and they've been told that who they are doesn't matter, and they've taken on other person's stuff. This is where we start with them. How you doing, Big Roy? Now we can go back further, but this is where we're gonna start with them, right? So we're gonna start with them in this context, right? Especially with the scripture. This is who we're dealing with, is persons who have been taken over. Right? Matter of fact, let me I want to research something real quick just so I don't tell you any lies. Everything I said so far is true. There's something coming up. I just want to make sure. Hold on. I'm pretty sure I'm on it, but I don't want to mess it up. Okay, I'm on. All right, we headed over there. So remember when we talked about Ephesus? In Ephesus, they worshiped Artemis, right? And she was basically their version of Ishtar. They were losing their first love. And have you noticed in the Christian church, they still celebrate Ishtar, right? Easter, not Passover, Ishtar, right? The S-U-N is the S-O-N, right? They still celebrate that, right? Baldur, if you know about Scandinavian stuff as well, or, you know, basically the Norse theology, things of that nature, right? Right? Frida, mistletoe, all the different things. This is stuff that's tied and becomes part of Artemis. Also, too, Artemis is like their version sometimes too is looked at as being. This is why they had a lot of eunuchs. That if you were to be a male that was high up in the priesthood, you had to become a eunuch because she was supposed to be half woman, half man as well. Over time, she changed up. They start including all these different things. So this is the spirit that they worship. Very worshiping the bear, worshiping sexuality, being out of pocket, right? They had to give offerings. We talked about the offerings yesterday. They had to offer up in Ephesus to Artemis. They had to offer up pictures of bears and picture of the wild and pictures of milk and honey because it's a Canaanite religion. And remember when we went into Canaan before it became Israel, it was the land flowing with milk and honey, right? We don't recognize the connection of these things, but this is the same spirit. We got to be careful. The same spirit. It ain't going nowhere. Just like today, some of these same things we're present say, man, that's older. That's not for us. Or, you know, we're not Israel anymore. No. The same spirit. The same spirit. This is why you got to make sure you understand it's the same spirit that rose Yahshua from the dead, dwelleth within you and will quicken your mortal body. Not a different spirit, the same spirit. The same spirit that we got to identify and say, hey, we as Israel and in our community and as Hebrews, we have a lot of men. If we look at the history of them that are sexually immature and do all types of wild stuff, we better deal with that. It's not only because of what they did to us in chattel slavery with buckbreaking, right? They did a lot of different stuff to us, there's a lot of stuff we did to ourselves where we were all over the place trying to be like a lot of other persons and making excuses and trying to give word, you know, or trying to give excuses for, well, you know, we'll have this, or well, my wife, she's the one that suggested that I lay down with Hagar. Now, it's my wife. She's the one that suggested I eat the fruit. Because chasing tail, rather than chasing Yah, is something that a lot of us men have been dealing with. Oh, I'm sorry. You know, I'm not sorry. I said what I said. Right? For a lot of us men, we have thought that it's more important to chase tail than it is to chase Yah. And we were talking about in the men's meeting last night that before before helpmeet was even created, and was then called Aishah, or Ishah, as some of you say, wife, And then before she was even called Amma, which some of you call Eve, before she was called mother, before she even existed, Adam was given a work and a place to guard, right? A garden, the Garden of Eden, the guarded place of Adam. Adam was a whole big place. And then up in the northeast part of it, there was something called the garden. It was guarded. He was supposed to dress it and keep it. Yahweh says it's not righteous that he be alone. I will make for him a helpmeet. Then he doesn't tell him he's going to make him a helpmeet. He gives him a work, because through his work, he will discover not only who he is, not only the power he has, but he will also recognize in his authorizing or naming of the animals, he will also recognize, wait a minute, they all have something that I need. So before we start talking about the wife, do you even know what it is that you're supposed to dress, keep, and address so that you can take care of the needs of what you need? See, if you need something, you got to address the needs of what you need. Okay, you need a vehicle, right? If you don't make sure that vehicle gets gas, you can't be upset when the vehicle doesn't go. You need a vehicle, right? If you have the vehicle, if you have your vehicle and it needs gasoline, I'm sorry, it needs engine oil, and you leave that engine dry, and then the engine starts seizing up on you, you can't get upset at the car and just start taking an axe to it. Right? If you got a car and that car needs a tire change, but you keep grinding around on the rims, you can't be upset when your car is jacked up. Right? So before we received a wife, what did we receive? We received our work, and through our work, we saw what it was necessary and what we needed. But now that we know how to dress and keep the environment that our wife will be given. Remember, Adam was not made in Eden. He was made outside of Eden. He's placed in Eden after his creation. All right. So if he's placed in Eden after his creation, it's because he knows how to do these things, but also now he's got to learn how to dress this environment and be able to take even the lessons of where he was created and how he was created to be able to bring it to a place and make sure he dresses it and keeps it. And once he can dress and keep the place, now he can dress and keep the wife. And the wife should be able now to be in a situation where, because he knows how to dress and keep the environment, I'll let him dress and keep the environment, but I'll also help him to multiply what's going on, because he will provide my needs according to the riches and glory of the Most High. Even if he thinks he is in poverty, come on, Revelation chapter 2, verse 9, even if he thinks he is poor, really he is rich if he comprehends that his work will provide for his wife. Whoever that was for, that was for. That's not what we focus on today. All praises to the Most High. But see, we have to know that this is the type of message we're supposed to write. See, Smyrna has no idea of who they are, and they've been colonized, and they've been beat up, and they've been told that there's something they are not. See, brothers, sisters, we are not what they tell us we are. Israel, we are not who they've been saying we are. We are the chosen. How you doing, Brother Alan, Sister Quotation? We are the chosen of Yah. We are the chosen of the Most High Yahweh Elohim. We are supposed to give a report. We are supposed to be clean. We are supposed to be lawful. And who said these things to us? Revelation chapter 2, verse 8. Who said these things to us? These things saith the first and the last, and which was dead and is alive. Not was, is alive. If our Messiah says that about us, then it's more than the whole world against us. Smyrna, though, is the place where they've forgotten who they are already. Before we even popped up, they've assimilated to a culture. And when they started to assimilate, not only did they get into some of this Artemis stuff, but they actually began to worship different deities. Like you'll see when we get to Sardis, they celebrated Hercules and Hermes. Well, here they celebrated Zeus, Athena, and I don't remember exactly who this one is. I got to look it up. Cybele or Cybele. Man, I'm not sure how to pronounce that one. Please, I got to look that one up. I forget who is Cybele. That one was escaping me for some reason. So this spirit of Cybele. So we know who Zeus is supposed to be, the deity of lightning. Athena is supposed to be a deity of war, but she's the female, right? They have the male, which is Mars or Aries, and then you have the female, which is Athena, right? And then you have Cybele. Cybele is the mother. Okay, so there we go. So she's the mother of Neptune. As a matter of fact, I didn't even see. Praise Yah. for just reading. Watch this. She was a powerful Anatolian mother, goddess of fertility. So this just simply tells us who they call Cybele is the same as Artemis. Remember, Artemis is nothing more than Ishtar. So they celebrated Ishtar in Ephesus. It's a Pergamine dynasty, so if you do it in one place, it influences the other. So they heavily favored Ishtar, Baphomet, transsexualism, all types of stuff, right? And then they heavily favored over in Smyrna, they favored Zeus, Athena, and also who's supposed to be the mother of these gods, right? Who is who is Cybele. Now, if you know about Cybele, Cybele has some similarities. And so does Artemis, if you be honest about it, she got some similarities as far as having children and being children of all the nature, or all the deities rather, or what we call gods today. If she's the mother of all of them, and she right, and the Anatolian persons who are the persons who are of Ephesus, right, the Hittites and all that stuff going back to Babylon, etc. They have the same person. Just calling them a different name doesn't mean they're not the same spirit in this case. Right? Same spirit operating today. This Ishtar spirit. And if you know about Gaia, who's just another Greek, you guys, we forget that the Greeks, before they were known as Greece, as you want to call them today, they didn't consider themselves to be a country, a nation. They were a bunch of city-states. They were a bunch of mini countries or micronations, if you want to think about it in modern sovereign terminology. They were a bunch of micronations that they were their own thing, right? So there was a point where Thessalonica didn't care about, you think of Thessalonians, they're all Greek. At one point, those who were in Thessalonica would never consider themselves to be Spartan. And a Spartan would never consider himself to be Anatolian, right? Right? And somebody of Ephesus would never have considered themselves to be Smyrna. They were different places, but somebody came and conquered them and put them all together. It's like with China. Go through the history of China, right? Beijing at one point would have never said they're the same place as Achu, right? Just like the Americas. Well, even if we go back before that, right? Native Americans, they were different nations. But even with that, and technically still in the United States of America, every state is a country. You've just been taught different. You don't know the difference between the federal government, which is the corporation, and the states, or the estate, which is the nation. The 50 nations work together under one corporation. The corporation allows them to have territories. Washington, D.C. is a territory under the artificial person of the federal corporation that's owned by a bunch of these states. Or at least a bunch of these states use and are on the board of. Right? But back then, it wasn't as sinister yet. It was just, hey, those who were Athenian, we would never. And by the way, if you were Athenian, if you followed Athens, right, Athena was somebody that you automatically had to be against Ares. Ares and Athena, both gods of war, but they hated each other. So if you worshiped Athena, anybody who worshiped Ares, we got to fight to the death. If you're somebody who's Aries, we got to fight to the death against those who are Athenian. It even does, even though it's a video game. Those of you who do the God of War thing, I mentioned that a lot because that's a more modern game, or a somewhat modern game now. I guess time flies; it's kind of old now, but in video game years. But when you go back and if you go to the original God of Wars before they started doing God of War with his son in them and stuff like that, they show you that those who are with Ares, he's fighting against Athena. And then, interestingly enough, they flip it to where at the end he's listening to Athena, and Athena was evil anyways. Right? So that's actually in that whole game. I know it's a video game, but if you know what I'm talking about, that actually has some realism to it. So if you were in, so they still worship Ishtar, even by a different name. Gaia belongs somewhere else. When Greece finally has to fight Persia, what you call Greece today, when they all come together to fight against the Persians, and they finally defeat them, and they start saying, we got to be one nation now, right? And they take all of their different deities and titans even that they worship, and they say, okay, we all got to be one. And they start to change all of their stories to match up, rather than having different stories, because if they have different stories, they know in a nation, you can't have different belief systems, right? They know in a nation, you can't have different belief systems. So what they did is they said, okay, see, they did it different than what we're supposed to. We're just supposed to keep the same as what the Most High said, keep the same. For them, they said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to make sure, okay, you guys say Gaia, and you guys say Artemis, and you guys say Athena, and you guys say Zeus, and you guys say Hera, and you guys say Heracles, and you guys say that. They hired persons to come and take all of those and make them into one story. Because if we don't believe the same thing, we're not truly integrated. One logic, come on. See, and as much as, see, it's going to get serious today. As much as we don't like to talk about it, integration is one of the worst things that have ever happened. Not because integration is bad. The reason integration is one of the worst things that happen to our people is because we think we've been integrated. Okay, come on, Holy Spirit. Somebody didn't catch it. Look, integration is one of the worst things that happen to our diaspora. Not because integration is bad, but it's because you think that things have actually been integrated. You do not know what integrated means. That's where we've been indoctrinated, but not integrated. What you saying, Pastor Kofi? All right. If I have been integrated, the word integrated, it means that there must be some things that are integral. If I have been integrated, it means that I must have integrity, right? If I have an integrity, guess what integrity means? It means that I look through a prism that is one. So there cannot be different spirits that are worshipped and we be integrated. It is impossible. You can't be assimilated. Well, even assimilated is even forcefully, right? Or just, we're taking it. Well, I don't know. Depends on how you look at assimilation. I could be wrong. I could be wrong on that one, to be honest, right? But yeah. So we have this mindset that we're integrated because we don't have to sit in the back of the bus. Even though there was a young brother. I don't know how recent. It got to be pretty recent. At least I never heard about it. Where I don't know if some of y'all heard about it. A young brother was told to get on the bus by the bus driver. Got on there with his students. Bus driver said, "We're gonna make sure we get you home." Some persons that worked somewhere else, I think for the school system or something like that, saw him on there and were like, "Why are you on here, black child?" He was discriminated against. The students tried to say, "No, he's with us. He's one of the students." They asked him to get off the bus. He was like, "I'm not going to get off the bus. This is a bus that I'm supposed to be on." Right? Police show up. He says the same thing. They say he doesn't need to get off the bus. He says, "Well, I'm not getting off the bus until every student gets off the bus." Every student gets off the bus. He still says, "You know what? I'm still not going to get off the bus." I could be a little hazy on that part, by the way. How you doing, Brother Rodney? So then he decides, and this is recent. This ain't 1960s. This is 2025, 2026, somewhere in here. I'm pretty sure. If I'm off a year or so, forgive me, but it's recent. And so my man decides he's going to stand his ground. The police officer's getting upset. The police officer starts saying, "Boy, you're going to get off this bus." He's not going to get off the bus. The police officer tases him. He says his adrenaline is pumping, still going. He stands up. He decides that he's going to stand up. But he's got, and they're getting on him or whatever. And basically the police officer's coming after him again. I think he tases it. I could be wrong on this part. Somebody might have to correct me. But something happens to him to where he falls off the bus. Might have got tased again, pushed off. I don't know. Then they get him outside. He's handcuffed. Police officer starts slapping him, not hitting him. And this is a teenager, little boy, right? He an older teenager, but he a little boy, right? Slapping him. While he's handcuffed. The persons who called the police now are like, dang, and have been trying to get the police off him. They finally get him off. The boy's able to start somewhat trying to get to his feet, and the police officer keeps trying to rush him to hurt him again. Right? We act like this stuff is so old, where persons are trying to tell us that we are who we are not. Right? This boy didn't do nothing but try to get on the bus and go home. And then they started saying, "You got to go to this hospital." He's like, "No, I'm not going to this hospital. If I go to any hospital, I'm going to go to this one." And they were like, "Well, we're not going to let you go, but we'll escort you to the other one." He didn't go. So he didn't even get the help that he needed as far as his health is concerned. And when he was talking, they revealed on his chest, about here, he pulled back his shirt and pulled it back. And somewhere around here, he had 3 marks of the tase. Now, you've been told that you've been integrated. Integration has happened. Does that sound like integrity? Does that sound like us being one? Yeah, we got to discuss it. I know we don't want to, But we got to. How you doing, Minister Raj? That's right. The police are out of control. But see, integrity, becoming one, means that we don't look at each other different because somebody's lighter or darker, or because somebody's slave patrolman who has a badge and doesn't know how to control themselves. There has to be one. Right? The reason why you do light skin, dark skin is because somebody who says, the same man who says he integrated you also preached the sermon December 25th in 1712. The same authorities, the same persons that are over you now, preached the sermon back then to tell you that on Christmas Day, their pagan holiday, they need to make sure that they came against you. Do you know that the burning crosses, for those who did the Birth of a Nation, you've been doing the watch party with us, you know this. When we saw Birth of a Nation, they said the burning cross is supposed to be something that goes back to a pagan Scottish symbol that helps them to make sure that their pagan beliefs concerning our Tav, what they call the cross, right, is supposed to be something that allows for them to be able to do the atrocities to us to make sure that the black man cannot put his boot upon their neck. I'm not telling you what I heard. I'm telling you, those of you who were on the watch party on Saturday, I'm telling you what we watched. Right? I got some witnesses on here, right? I can see some names that I know were on there. Y'all saw it, right? Y'all remember that? On Saturday, yesterday? 12:15 p.m. New York time. We do our watch party, right? Y'all remember we saw that? It was on there. They said this cross, this burning cross, is a Celtic pagan symbol that we're going to use to be able to say, they're not using the top, see, mixing up iron and clay. They said, we as good white Christian folk over here, I'm not saying all, I'm talking about this particular movie, Birth of a Nation, written in 1915, created in 1915, that was so popular they had to build movie theaters for the first time from certain places just to make sure they could watch it. The president of the United States watched it and became a member of the KKK, allegedly, right? And did all these different things or whatever. They put all this stuff together to make sure the KKK grew, and they tried to change the history because a lot of persons forget that the way that 1915, the way they go from 1915 to explain back to 1865 is like you and I going from 2025, now 2026, but let's just say 2025 to go back to 1975. That's not that far, is it? See, for them, they were literally saying the South should rise again because they or their parents fought, bled, and died to keep chattel slavery and to make sure they kept power in the hands of a few, and those few got them to try and identify with color rather than the truth. So this country was never based off of integrity or integration. It was always based off of non-integral or non-integrated or non-truth or non-oneness. The more division there is, the more the beast is in charge. But the less division, the more integrity there is, the less chance there is for a beast. This is why there can only be one Yahweh Elohim. There cannot be two. There can only be one Yahashua Mashachi. There cannot be two. There can only be one Ravak Hakudash. There cannot be two. Matter of fact, for you, there can only be one of you. You have to stop being divided amongst yourself. Which one is it? Are you going to be righteous or are you going to be... You cannot serve two masters. You will love one and hate the other. You must. Choose ye this day who you will serve. See, they tricked you into believing that you were integrated, but to be integrated, you must be one. So if you can worship, look, and I'm not trying to get on anybody, I'm just giving examples. If you can worship, some persons do, some don't, but if you can worship Buddha, if you can worship Jesus, if you can worship Allah, if you can worship Elohim, if you can worship the Mormon Jesus, if you can worship the Mormon Elohim, if you can worship the Jehovah's Witness Elohim, if you can worship those who are trying to say eschatology means they can go against the Bible and tell you when the last day actually is, all these different things. If you believe in all these different things and allow them to exist in the same space, as much as we're told that shows how much acceptance and tolerance that they have, that's not integrity. Now, watch this. If we're integrated in oneness in our belief system, we don't believe that we should offer you because you're not a follower of the way. But somebody else's belief system that you're caping up for sometimes and you're trying to still support, they believe that because they're Christian, they're better than you because Israel doesn't deserve to be able to have what belongs to Israel. You got to ask yourself, are we wrong in our integrity? Or when they come together as one, are they wrong in their integrity? Or do they lack any integrity? Amen. How you doing, Brother Dwayne? How you doing, Brother Jermaine? If I didn't say so already, right? High school student from in Fulton County, Georgia, was tased. But okay, there you go. Thank you. December 2025. I didn't know when it was. I just saw it, I think last night or the day before. Right. So there you go. So this happened. Thank you, Sister Carla. So she said here, a high school student in Fulton County, Georgia, was tased by a school police officer after refusing to get off a school bus in December 2025. How you doing, friend? Did that sound like integrity? One. See, you have to even be careful when you sit down at your church. Some of you gonna go to church today. Hey, do what you do. But when you go there, I'm gonna talk like your pastor for a second. When you go to church later, and you go down and you sit down in the pew, I want you to look to your left and to your right, and I want you to say to the neighbor on your left, neighbor, I know the truth, but I don't think you might. And I want you to turn to the other neighbor on the other side on the right. And I want you to tell him, neighbor, I said, neighbor, I want you to tell him that you probably don't even know who Yahweh is. Because it's the truth. Just because you sit down with somebody doesn't mean you all coming together for one thing. There's a sister coming there to hear the word. There's another sister coming there to see who she can catch. There's a brother there coming to hear the word. There's another brother coming in there switching it all over the place. Everybody coming together in one place, but it doesn't mean they're integrated. How you doing? Remember me. How you doing, Reed Cross? Thanks for being part of the community. How you doing, Anastasia? Shalom to everybody. Peace, peace, peace. Welcome. Come on in. Shalom Barak. You hear what I'm saying? They're going to be persons. You're going to say, this is why persons sit there. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of it. Matter of fact, some of you going to go to your camps. Let's not do just as church folk. Some of you will go to your camps who are swearing up and down that they're doing things differently, but all they've done is just replace this crazy stuff that they were doing by sprinkling some Jesus on it, and now they sprinkle some Yahashua or some Yahushua or some Yahusha or some Yeshua on it, and y'all swear up and down that they ain't doing the same thing. You're showing up in one place, but it's not a nation. We're not called to just come back together to one place. We're called to be a nation. Your nationality, your belief, your language, your culture, the instructions of the Most High, your doctrine should be what? One. I love. Thanks for the love, babe. And how you doing? Is it Canada or Canada? Please forgive me. I don't know how to pronounce it. Welcome on. Thank you for being on with us. We're supposed to be one. The most important commandment of all. Yehoshua quoted this when he was asked, what's the most important commandment of all? He quoted Deuteronomy 6:4. Shema Yechad Sha'al. Shema Yechad Sha'al. Yechava Elachem, Yechava Elachem Alav. At Achava Yechava. At Alav. Lav. At Alav Nachivash. At Alav Anan. At Alav Ravak, right? In other words, hear, O Israel, Yechava Elachem is one, and you must love him with all your heart, your soul, your mind, and your strength. The second like it is this, to love your neighbor as you love yourself. Right? On this, all the other commandments hang on to that, or built upon that. And what did he even do in his righteous, perfect genius? Yehoshua also took the 10 commandments, Exodus 20, the first 4 to deal with the love of the Most High. Right? Honor him. What's the first commandment? Have no other Elohims before him. Have no versions of him. Have no gods before him. What's the second one? Do not bow down to idols. What's the third one? Be careful what you speak. Don't speak things in vain. And don't speak against him in vain. Don't speak. The word vanity they're talking about is like water vapor. It's like when you go out and it's the dew in the ground and all this mist around you and stuff. But you can just walk through this as if it's nothing. Don't go through his word as if it's nothing. Right? And then the fourth commandment is what? Honor and keep the Sabbath. Shabbat. Which is what? More than likely, because we know he was keeping the Lord's day. So it could be a holy day, but more than likely it was the Sabbath that John himself is keeping when he receives revelation. He kept the law to receive the revelation of the moral lawgiver who obeyed the law perfectly, that when you and I disobey the law, we can repent from it and depend on him to be our propitiation, to be our mediator, and be the one to say, yeah, yes, he deserves death, but I have decided that he deserves life because he be mine. How you doing, Miss Woa? Whoa. Right, don't know how to say it. You see that? He said some take that to mean there is no law now. Which part? I'm sorry, I was talking for a minute, Sister Allison. You gotta reel me back in. What part was I talking about? Where persons say they use that to come against the law? because they use just about everything now, right? But I'm sorry, what was I saying? You gotta have to hold me accountable, rein me back in. What was I saying at that time so I can answer the question? And how you doing? Is it Marquise? I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Thanks for being part of the community, right? But Christ followed the law, and we just read earlier, right, where it says that those who have an advantage. It says Romans. That's our man Paul. And that's supposed to be your man's too. Paul says Romans chapter 3, verse 1 and 2, that we have an advantage because we are Judah, because we are circumcised, followers of the law, because we had known the prophecies way before you guys even existed. At least in the way that you thought of today. What the Messiah said, yeah, I'm not sure which. Well, the Messiah said, I don't recall what I was saying, but ultimately, Yehashua, I don't know which part. I'm not sure. I'm sorry. Which, if you can tell me exactly what it is. So, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to dismiss it, right? Holla Joy, how you doing? All praise to the Most High. So, the Most High Yahweh Elohim wants us to reestablish integrity, oneness. Remember, even in Galatians, we've been going through Galatians in the series in the evenings, right? Galatians chapter 2. Paul says that he went into check after 18 years of preaching. So you can say Paul was doing his own thing. He still went back to James, Peter, and John, and they sat down together with Barnabas and with, was it Barnabas? I think it was Barnabas and Titus. Yeah, Barnabas and Titus. Not Timothy. Yeah, he wasn't there. So Barnabas and Titus. So all six of them sat down and made sure that what was being preached to Israel was the same thing being preached to the Gentiles. That means that they compared notes. So they weren't preaching a different thing. For those of you who keep saying, oh, Paul was preaching a different thing because he was bringing us in. No. They compared notes to make sure that what they were preaching was the same. What they were preaching was what Christ preached. And Christ preached law. For those who don't believe that, sweet spot, Sermon on the Mount, Romans chapter 5, verses 10 through 12. When persons come against us and say all manner of evil against us because we are following the law and doing what Yahshua says, and as long as we are not being disobedient to the law, but we're doing what's righteous, when they come against us, we should be rejoicing and being exceeding glad, for they did the same thing to the prophets that came before us. So if we keep what the prophets kept, and they're mad at us for it, then it said, Yahshua, the Messiah, says on the Sermon on the Mount that we should rejoice and be exceeding glad. No wonder John gets a revelation, because revel means to rejoice. We should rejoice about what makes others upset at us, because this ain't for them. But then Yahshua doesn't stop there. Matthew chapter 5, verses 17 through 20. He says, hey, think not that I came to destroy the law or the prophets. I came not to destroy, but I came to put this law into effect. Therefore, right, until heaven and earth passes away, we should not change the most minuscule of measurements, nor even the way it was written. Anybody who therefore teaches against the law and does not live by the law, they are the least in the kingdom of heaven. But those that live by what is taught and they preach it and they live it, right, they are considered to be the greatest in the kingdom. And you should know the law greater than the scribes and the Pharisees, meaning that a lot of these scribes and Pharisees don't even live by what they are supposed to be held accountable to. And if that don't make sense to you, Matthew chapter 7, verse 12, which you call the golden rule, you only know half of it, which says, do unto others as you want done unto you. They don't teach you the whole golden rule, because it means you got to be obedient to the law. Because the whole golden rule says, do unto others as you want done unto you. For this is the law and the prophets. If I don't know what the law says and what the prophets say, I shouldn't be doing anything to anybody, because I'm doing something inside of my flesh, which is why Paul will call us later on in Romans chapter 7, after saying the law is holy, the law is true, the law is without sin. Right? We need the 10th commandment to even know what lust is, because how can we know we're lusting if we don't know not to covet? And he says all these things, and then he says the problem is that the law has been changed. Some of you go by the law of sin, which is when you put your flesh on the law. But it's supposed to be the law of the Spirit. It's supposed to manifest from Yahweh, and whatever he says as he manifested in, we follow the law to the letter, so it remains the law of the Spirit in its origin. What has happened is you've allowed your traditions and your flesh to change it up to where now it's the law of sin. So now it is the law of your flesh. This is why Romans chapter 8, verse 1 comes right behind that. See, it would have been 11 chapters, no verses. So if you keep on going into chapter 8, verse 1, that's why it says, so now, therefore, we are not under condemnation. We cannot be condemned. Why? For we follow after the spirit and not after the flesh. And if you don't believe that those two are connected to each other, even though they would have been one continuous thought, verse 2 comes right behind it and mentions the law of the Spirit and the law of sin once again. This is what Paul is talking about. There is law, but when you start to change the law or make it what you want it to be, now you have messed it up. It is not the law if it is the law of sin. Because if you use it to fall short, it is not what it's supposed to be used for. If you use it to remain righteous, then it is what it's supposed to be used for. Even in Galatians, same Galatians we were talking about earlier, we've been studying out of Galatians chapter 3, which everybody tries to use as some weird thing to get rid of. He never says be against the law. Matter of fact, he says the law does not negate the promise. So if I know what the promise is, the promise still comes through persons where we're looking for the seed. The true seed we're looking for really is Christ. But the reason why it matters so much about Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and Judah, etc., right? The reason why that matters so much is because we are supposed to follow the law because of the moral lawgiver. Now, curse, yes. The person get this wrong. Galatians chapter 3, verse 7, Galatians 3:13. When he says, "Curse is any man that hangeth from a tree," he's quoting what? Law. Just like Matthew chapter 4, before the Sermon on the Mount, right after he's baptized, when he goes into the wilderness, every time he says, "It is written," that's Deuteronomy. And the one time that the devil says, "It is written," that's Psalms, Psalm 91. They're quoting the law, right? They're having a conversation about the law. And even when Satan quotes the law, you have to make sure that you recognize that the Most High, Yehoshua, on earth, the manifestation, is saying, yeah, I know you're trying to get me on that, but we're not going to act like the law's not holy, whole, one, allowed. All of it goes together. Don't try to hit me with just this little part that you like. No, make sure that you recognize this part over here. Back to Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy, also known as the second law. Why is it known as the second law? Because it's a reiteration of the law. Moses cannot go into the land of Canaan, the land is promised with us. So he tells us, reiterates to us, hey, this is what the law states. Don't forget, this is what happened when we broke the law before. If you do that, Deuteronomy 28 will happen. Matter of fact, the other part that you guys like, Deuteronomy 27, verse 26, that the law is a curse to us if we don't keep it, right? Well, the next verse after that is Deuteronomy 28, verse 1, where it says, "Hear, O Israel, Shema Yechad, if you hearken diligently unto the voice of Yahweh Elohim, to observe and to do all his commandments that I've told you this day, then you will be set on high." Right? All those things you like. If you hearken diligently unto the voice of Yahweh Elohim to obey and do all those things that are commanded, then you will be set on high. Then you will be put above all nations. Then you will be blessed, Barak in the city, Barak in the field, right? Then you will be Barak in your cattle and your kind. Then you will be able to have your enemy come before you one day and flee before you several, right? But here, first, all of this law. And Christ comes because, yes, we could not keep all of it. So guess what? At some point, we had to deal with the curse, including hell. But Christ comes to make sure that he takes on what you couldn't take on so that you're not free, where you never have to do the law. You're free to where the promises that are given to you can be given. And guess what? If Christ followed the law and you carry your cross to follow him, then now you can follow him because the law doesn't negate the promise. That's the context. How is it that you guys forget that there was no such thing as Old or New Testament? So therefore, when Paul says it is written, it's what you call Old Testament. You say we can keep all of it? Once again, that's not what I said, is it? Right? Hold me accountable to what I say. Hold me accountable. But hold me accountable to what I say. Don't hold me accountable because you're like, oh, this is where he's going. No. We are supposed to do our best to keep the law, right? Just because Christ died doesn't mean that I can murder somebody, correct? Just because Christ died doesn't mean that I can lie. Just because Christ died doesn't mean that I can cheat. Just because Christ died doesn't mean I can now worship idols. Just because right? They don't go away. But there will be times where I mess up or mess around or even purposefully disobey the law. And because I will do so, I needed his sacrifice because that's what the sacrifice is for. Whenever I commit a sin, that curse requires blood. The blood of animals only help with one law by one law, an animal innocent of my sin. That's why certain animals have to be sacrificed, or even grain offerings and stuff, but certain animals have to be sacrificed for certain sins, right? They have to be innocent of it, and they have to be clean. They have to be lawful. They have to be legal. That being said, though, Christ, he gives the ultimate sacrifice to where animals don't have to be given, and he is an eternal sacrifice, which means that anything from my past, present, and future is covered. So therefore, yes, I do my best to still follow the law, but it's not because I worship the law, it's because I worship Christ. See, hold me accountable for what I say. Hold Paul accountable for what he says. Hold Christ accountable for what he says. Hold ourselves accountable for what we try to do when we try to make it our interpretation rather than interpret properly. You said you can marry a Canaanite now? You can marry somebody who's a follower of the way. And that doesn't mean just by blood or by DNA only. Sure, that can count. Israel is a blood DNA, but we're talking about a nation. See, once again, this is why this is a deep thing with Smyrna. We're talking about nationality. Why is it that we keep talking about this without talking about nationality? See, the only reason you think, I'm going to hip you to something. The only reason why you don't know nationality is because you think that the birth certificate is real. You've been taught under birth certificate theology, if you will. The birth certificate, which nobody even really cared about officially until like the 1940s, right? I'm not saying they didn't exist at all, but nobody cared about them like that until the 1940s. They weren't even supposed to be used the way that we use them today. But the birth certificate is supposed to be an artificial person sold to a corporation. It's not even the real version of you. That's why you have to give your signature for the all caps version of you to be used. And that's not something I'm just making up, right? You don't even, some of you forget 28, we mentioned this quite a bit here, but 28 USC, that stands for United States Code, 28 USC 300215 subsection A tells you that the United States is a federal corporation. What is a corporation? It's an artificial person. Corpse is in the word. It's not even the real version of you, it's the dead version of you. So the only reason you think of nationality as only being what we call race today is because you don't recognize that if somebody gets married into someone else, they're part of that nation. So I know in English, they keep saying, oh yeah, Ruth the Moabitess. But once Ruth is married in and locked in, she's Israel. I know we forget that Moses' wife was Cushite, but once she's married in, she's Israel. I know we keep talking about Joseph's wife and she was there, but guess what? Once she's married in, she's Israel. I'm talking about Joseph from the 11 original nations, right? The 11 branches, the 12th child of Israel. Right? Once Israel accepts his children and adopts them and says you can have the same level of birthright as the 12, right? They are Israel. That's how nations work. See, hashtag we be the nation. We're not doing this weird theology, crooked thing of looking at this. We're going to keep the way straight. We're going to keep the word the word. You hear me talking like this. Now, look, I know that there's persons who say they believe what I believe and use this nefariously. We should call them out for that. But we're talking about nationality. If we are a nation, a holy nation, a royal priesthood, a chosen generation, which also means family as well. Chosen generation, right? I'm sorry, I went out of order. Chosen generation, royal priesthood, holy nation. What's the other one I'm missing? I'm missing number 4. Forgive me, right? But we're supposed to be these things to show forth the praises of Yah. That's a nation. So a lot of persons don't get that. Once somebody, you can come in as a so-called Canaanite, but if you're going to follow the law of the way and be grafted in and be married in properly, then guess what? You're no longer a Canaanite. Through my mother's side, you can call me Jamaica, you can call me Ghanaian, you can call me Asante or Ashanti, you can call me Ashanti Shwe, right? You can call me Shwe, you can call me a little bit of Igbo, Avla, Ivlit, etc. Right? But once I'm part of this nation, I don't have dual citizenship. It's one, integrity, or it's nothing with a UF and an apostrophe at the end in place of the G. It's nothing. Right? See, your argument that you have for me is trying to argue from a place to where I'm trying to demonstratively say nobody can do anything and you can't be part. No. If you follow the way, the truth, and the life, I haven't said anything against your belief system, have I? Your problem is you've made an assumption that I automatically am talking against Yehoshua, but Yehoshua is who sent me. You see that? So when persons say that, we got to be careful with those persons, not you in particular. I think I know what you meant. And if I didn't, forgive me either way, right? I hope I didn't come off a certain way. But yeah, right? It never said we can keep all the law because you have sin. Your seed is sin. See, Yehoshua's flesh, his DNA was sin. Even with that, though, he was still a Levite. That being said, his bloodline, I know y'all don't like this, but his bloodline, the bloodline comes from your daddy. When we talk bloodline, we're not just talking about O positive, A negative, A, all that stuff is cool. E1B1A, E1B1B, all that stuff. Yeah, we can talk about it, but that's not what your bloodline actually is. Your bloodline is who be your daddy. Your DNA is who be your mama. And his daddy, the seed that was put inside of Mary, was not a seed of man. So even if you want to talk about Yehoshaphat, he had to be grafted in anyways. That's why he becomes Judah. He wasn't Judah by seed. He was Judah by being grafted in. So if you're not ready to talk about being grafted in, you're not ready to talk about Christ. He's the first one that had to be grafted in so that he could become Judah. So you guys don't recognize this, but see, in our culture, you do your paperwork before you actually lay down with the person, before you get married. You do your paperwork when you get affianced. Once you're betrothed, then the husband goes to build a mansion, an add-on to his father's house, and the wife, she puts on her lamp, preparing herself for her husband. Then when the father says that everything's done, because the son doesn't know the day nor the hour, but the father does, he's looking for specific things to be built, then he sends his son back and says, hey, go get my daughter and bring her over. See, we don't know culture. We're not integrated into culture. We don't recognize how culture is working. That's right. We are peculiar. That's what one I was missing. Peculiar person, peculiar people. Hallelujah. All praises to the Most High. Right? So back to Revelation chapter 2. Shalom, Leedy. How you doing? Thanks for being on. Leedy is me. How you doing? Revelation chapter 2. Chazan Bayit. Tit. Revelation chapter 2, verse 9. This is where it gets deeper. So we can't deny who Israel is. We can't pretend. We can't act like Balaam doctrine is in. Remember, right? We can't act like the Nicolaitans doctrine is cool, right? Remember, even with the assembly of Ephesus from yesterday, he said, one thing I will say about y'all, even with you losing your first love and getting into this Artemis spirit stuff, one thing I can say for sure is that you don't fall for the Nicolaitans doctrine. You're not allowing, right, this group to come together and say, we're going to put pagan roots on everything that's done. Or we're going to try to change. We're going to learn today. That's right. How you doing, Sister Monique? How you doing, Brother Jay? If I didn't say already. Right? Okay. So Revelation chapter 2, verse 9. He starts off again here the way that he says to every assembly. So I know somebody not gonna like this, but I'm just reading you your word, and this is what you guys call so-called New Testament. So let's keep it a buck. Don't come in here with that discussion today, because if we're talking about Revelation, this is way past what you guys call Old Testament. Matter of fact, this is years past, even chronologically speaking, so to speak. How you doing? Is it Kontsink or Kontsink? I don't know how to pronounce it. Please forgive me. Right. Shalom. So, here we go. You ready? Revelation 2:9. What does he start off with? What does it say in Revelation 2:9? What's the first 4 words? Maybe you have to have a King James version. I'm not sure if the other versions change this. But what's the first 4 words that we have? Revelation 2:9. Can anybody tell me? Remember now, I don't want you to just believe what I'm saying randomly. Like open the book. I don't want anybody to say, Pastor Kofi was over here just rolling and just say whatever. I'm sorry, how you doing, Sister Sheila? I missed you. Please forgive me. Right? There it is. I know thy works. This is going to be important because at the end of today, we got to go over to Revelation chapter 20, verses 11 through 15. So it's going to be important. But he says that to every assembly. Why is it that persons keep saying your works don't matter when the Messiah keeps saying something different? Why do person keep saying your works don't matter anymore in New Testament when the New Testament keeps saying stuff that's different? Matter of fact, it says you can have faith. We need faith. We need pistos. We need faith, which is belief in things that we haven't seen yet. We do need to have faith, or a strong belief even. We need to have faith, but guess what? We need to have faith and works, because faith without works is what? It's void. Come on. It's unalive. Y'all know the word that it really is. Right? Faith without works is lifeless. Why would you want to be lifeless? Why would you want to be a zombie? You know, you wake up every day. Why would you want to wake up every day? And right, every single day. Every single day. Why would you want to keep waking up every single day and just doing the same stuff over and over again, but have no life? See, that's why Yehoshua said that the enemy cometh, but to steal, kill, and destroy. But I have come. Now, you would think you're alive. Why would he say that? He said, I've come that you might have life and more abundantly. That word "it" is in italics. It wasn't originally there. So he said, I came that you might have life and more abundantly. If you want more, you got to have life. A lot of you are alive with no true life. You just do the same thing over and over again. DOA. ¿Cómo está, mi hermano? Gracias por tu presencia siempre. Right? Right? You hear what I'm saying? Come on, somebody. I have come that you might have life. Just because your heart is beating don't mean that you got heart. Just because your lungs are going back and forth doesn't mean you know the racha breath or the roha breath. Just because your hair is doing its thing today doesn't mean that you actually are attached to anything spiritual. Shalom, Auntie Marion, how you doing? Right? I know thy works. Just because you got a nice shirt on doesn't mean that you're covered by the Most High. There's a lot of spiritual zombies walking around. Should have life. I wake up. Go to bathroom. Eat breakfast. Sit at cubicle. I type. I come back. Maybe have sex, maybe not. I lay down in bed. I do the same thing. And then talk about your life. I go to Sunday service. I preach. I sing. I play. I do, and then you end up in you're a spiritual something. Where's your life? You can dance when the organ comes on, but you have no joy. Right? Let them open that up. I like it when you get out there and you open that thing up. You put it halfway in between. Right? Organ players, you know what I'm talking about. Y'all know the sound. You might not know what I'm talking about. All right? And you get ready and you go to that dominant five chord before you get ready to hit that dominant one. Oh, yeah. We on. It's cooking. Right? Hit 2-5 on them. Hit that diminished 2. Go to that dominant 5. It'll mess around with them, give them that pretty nice major 1. They're not even ready for it. But does that mean that Yahweh's in our hearts? I used to play all the time and mean that he was in my heart and in my mind and my soul, and he was my strength. That's right. We go through the motions and then call ourselves alive in Christ. This is why, once again, Revelation 1 says this is for those that will read it, that will hear it, and will keep it. Can you say you guard this word? If so, we're going to find out in a second, because, we're not going to pull no punches. We're going to tell you exactly what the word says. So if you guard this word, let's see how much you'll guard, or if you just get upset, because I've been hinting around it, and we've had other questions that have popped up and stuff as well, but I've been kind of walking around it, but now it's time to land this, to start descending the plane. Put your seats in the upright position. Make sure that your seatbelt is on. Please turn off your devices and pay attention, right? We need everybody's cooperation, integrity, being one to get what we're supposed to get. You ready? You might not like it, but here's Amat. Here's truth. Right? Buckle up. Here we go. Here's truth. Revelation 2:9. I know thy works and tribulation. I know that who I'm preaching to specifically is going through tribulation. Okay? I know your poverty. These particular persons seem to be stripped of being able to reach the riches that they have. But wait a minute. I know thy poverty, but thou art rich. And I know, y'all aren't gonna like this, but this is scripture. And I know the blasphemy. If you cape up for this, you are blasphemous. Let's stop beating around the bush. I know the blasphemy. If you participate in this, you are blasphemous. All right? Tighten the girls. Okay. All right. All right. All right. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Judah and are not, but are the synagogue of the Satan. Wait a minute. So no confusion. I'm gonna just read it 2 more times, and then we're gonna break it down, line upon line, precept upon precept. But before you get upset, right? Realize you're not upset with me. I just come to be the angel to the assembly, right? I come to be the messenger of the assembly. I'm taking what John was given from the angel that gave it to him, from Yehoshua that gave it to him, from Elohim who gave it to him. That's all I'm doing. It's chain of command. We're not supposed to give you anything different. It's signified. It's signed off. I'm just going to read it 2 more times and we're going to break it down. All right? Revelation 2:9. It says, I know thy works and tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Judah, Yehovah, Yehudi, right, Israel, and are not, but are the synagogue of the Satan. One more again. I know thy works and tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are you and are not, but they are the synagogue of the Satan. Who does that sound like? New Testament believers, you included too. Who that sound like? Those who say they are you and are ish. I know who I'm talking to. I'm not talking about them. This isn't their word. Now, it doesn't mean that they cannot become it if they're willing to deny those wicked ways and get in line and become part of the kingdom. But I know who says they are you and are not. And even if you want to go deeper, because we'll usually just focus on Ashkenazi, Khazarian, right? We'll kind of just stay right there. But also, too, don't forget that there are Christians who say that you don't matter anymore. See, Balaam doctrine. There are Christians who say, yeah, everybody is Judah now. There's a spiritual Judah. And yes, there is a spiritual side to who we are, but Judah is a family. It's not just only because you say Yahweh, Yehovah, Yahuwah, etc. Whatever dialect you want to, whatever hill you're going to die on for your dialect. It's not just because of that. You can say Yahweh and still have hate in your heart for the children of Israel. You can say you worship your God, which is a Germanic way of saying you can worship whatever you want. God in Hebrew means true, and it's one of the children of Israel. So we don't worship God. That's a man. That being said, though, you can worship your supposed God and still have hatred in your heart for the Negro. If you don't even know who the Negro is, this conversation is already above your head. Because how many of y'all think Negro mean black? Your mother and you both dealing with spiritual warfare. Apparently these spirits have been in you for years. And that could be there too. How you doing, Larry? Sorry, Larry Washington. Just in case, I know we be having multiple Larrys on sometimes. Welcome. Thanks for being on. Right? If you don't know who the Negro is, then you already missed the conversation because you think Negro means black. That's why y'all still sitting up here thinking that black means Israel. Black, or so-called black, is not even in Israel's title. Now, Kemet means black. Cush means black. Right? Ethiopian means black. These are actual nations with black in the title. There are blue blacks actually called that, right? There are slippery blacks actually called that, right? There are persons who actually go by Khalifa, who are Native Americans in what you call now the Western United States of America. They actually are known as black, call themselves that as a nation. That's cool. But no. Israel don't even mean black in definition, and Israel doesn't mean black just because a lot of us were extremely dark. Your mind says that because you don't know your nation. I'm not saying that all power to the people ain't true. I'm not saying black power isn't necessary. I'm not saying that all lives matter. I'm not on that. Right? I don't follow the Black Lives Matter organization. I ain't marched in it, but at the same time, I get it. Yeah, Black Lives Matter. And I respect, right? Little 4-year-old, 5-year-old girl out there crying out in tears talking about Black Lives Matter. I respect it. I'm not saying that I'm being disrespectful here. I'm trying to tell you, you might not recognize who Israel is. You don't know what Negro means. You don't know who the original Negro is. There's black coffee. Oh, okay, I don't know what it has to do with nationality. That's not apologetics. Right? Welcome, I guess, but that's not how apologetics work. Right? That being said, you got to realize, yeah, thank you so much. That don't have nothing to do with what I'm saying. If it's too much for you, just scroll. This is not going to go off. It's going to go off, but it's not going to be turned off, if you get my drift. All right, so watch this. In all this stuff, Negro is one of the most ancient ways of talking about West Africans. But also, we don't recognize that Negro in its original sense, was tied to the children of Israel. I'm talking about a historical documentation up until the 1550s in Europe, especially in what we call today Spanish-speaking countries. The Negro was considered to be, matter of fact, here's how they were defined. You ready? This is how they defined us. They defined the Negro as being swarthy. That means we had dark skin. They said we had locks. They said we believed in the Tanakh or the Torah. They said that about us. They said, this is what their monks, this is what their scribes said. Okay, they said that we were really into women, meaning that for them it was okay to do the whole down low thing, but for us we were really into our women, right? In other words, we had one wife, we had sex with women, we didn't have sexual relations with anybody that was male, and we were male or female if you were female, right? They say that we had hoodies. They said that we had hoodies and would be on street corners spitting poetry over music. And they stopped allowing us to call ourselves Negroes in the 1550s. What happened, right? What really was already happening. But what really happened when that happened, they said, we don't want you to do business. We wouldn't do business with them because we wanted our dollar to go around the community first. And then, yeah, we'll do a little bit of business here, but we're supposed to take care of each other even in business. They got upset that they couldn't get in on the money. Right? They got upset that we were doing our own thing and didn't even bow down to their Christian values. Right? They had to be under the Pope. We weren't. So guess what? We're going to go ahead and we're going to take over. We're going to say they're evil. Same thing they did with the, even though they had some evil tendencies too, but the same thing they did to the Knights Templar, where they said, hey, when the French king didn't have any money, and he says, you know what? Those Knight Templars, they devil worshippers. Now they were doing some wild stuff as far as belief. Were they devil worshippers in the sense they mean? Probably not. But as a way of getting to their money. And so they went and they enslaved us under this weird Christian edict signed off on the Pope as long as he could have slaves too and have money too. And they went and they said every Negro is now going to be a slave. And they took our children. This is the first chattel slaves as far as, right? Even the Dutch did this, got it on this, right? The Dutch actually started doing this first. But even the Dutch got in on this. And it started from the 1200s through 1500s and the 1550s. The name Negro went away because by law they put a decree in there that you couldn't call anybody a Negro because they knew if you knew who the Negro was, you would ask biblically, why are we taking this away? Matter of fact, there was a law in the books that if somebody called himself Negro, you could slash them in the face with a knife. You could cut their face, cut their mouth open. If they ever dared to call themselves Negro. You were allowed by law. They said you need to do that. Shut their mouths. Cut them open. And they would take us, and I won't go into the depths because it gets really, really disgusting, some of these torture techniques. So you think it's the Spanish Inquisition. You know the Spanish Inquisition was first for the Negro. This is in books you can read. I'm not telling you any secrets. Go look it up for yourself. Right? And they had us in positions to where they literally were doing torture techniques and stuff, trying to get us to give up our faith. And if we wouldn't give it up, whether it was by fire, whether it was by things that they even called like the Israelite or the Negro triangle and stuff like that, if all these different things, torture techniques didn't work, they would then say, you know what, well, fine, your baby's going to die. So many of us converted to Roman Catholicism, to Christianity. Then they sold us into slavery. Those who were like 12 and up, they eventually would be sold into slavery too. Those who were like 2 and 3 years and up, they would allow them to go ahead and be slaves for their children and then grow into slavery there. Or if they got too big for their britches, they shipped them off too. And then the little babies that need to be attached to the mamas, they allowed the mamas to either stay around, or usually the mamas would get shipped with the babies to their colonies. And when they went looking for slaves in Africa, just to seal the deal for you, when they went looking for us in Africa, guess what they did? They didn't look for Africans to be slaves first. They went looking for the Negro. After they couldn't find enough Negroes or couldn't get to some of the Negroes that were able to hide, right, or after they started running out really of us, then they said, okay, we'll start looking for Negroes and Africans. I'm not telling you what I heard. I'm telling you what's written. This is who we always were. So if you don't even know who the Negro is, right? Person get upset when we talking. This is when they start saying, you make it all about race. No, it's not all about race. I'm telling you the truth. They were so afraid of us comprehending who the Negro was that they would slash your mouth. They say it's better to cut that person's mouth and keep them quiet than it is to actually introduce them to who they really are. In Smyrna, you're dealing with the same type of logic, to where persons who actually don't even take into account that they had been squashed, colonized. Many of the persons who lived there weren't even the Aeolians anymore, and they now had taken on Hittite and Babylonian and Persian and Greek, Greco-Roman ways and Christian ways, to the point to where now they are trying to take over somebody else's culture and say that they even have some of the things of Judah, when really they are not us. You hear what I'm saying? I don't know what this is. Somebody music all now. Anyway, sorry. I hope that's not too distracting. Right? They don't want us to know who the Negro is. They don't want you to say, hey, you know what? Maybe it's important that I would know about myself. If we say anything about ourselves, then guess what we're supposed to be? We're supposed to be bad. We're cantankerous. Matter of fact, the way that it works now, the bourgeoisie comes in. We don't have to worry about the so-called white man in this. Right? Willie Lynch put this thing in order to where, hey, you know what? We don't even worry about the so-called white man. Guess what? We'll do it to ourselves. One sister getting too high up, look at her always coming to here with her hair nappy. She want to wear her locks and everything, blah, blah. She thinks she better than us. The right? You thinking you got to look for black, white. Now it's at the point to where you've done it. The bourgeoisie has been incorporated so much in places like South Carolina and Louisiana, to the point where you can't even tell if they us or not. And they take delight in being able to say that they aren't who they are. The same in the spirit. The same in the spirit. No, I haven't seen those, James. To be honest with you, I haven't seen. I've heard about it, but I haven't looked into it. Right? The same is in the spirit. The same is in the spirit, where today so many persons take so much pride in not believing what you are supposed to. Don't miss it. I'm not just focused now on your flesh, right? The same is in the spirit. Many of us are so proud, just like the Negro is, and just like the bourgeoisie and the boule and all this. Many of us now have become so proud, right? We have fallen in love with our oppressors. What we call that when somebody falls in love with the kidnapper? Stockholm syndrome. We have so much Stockholm syndrome that we love it when somebody says, yeah, you don't sound like somebody who would say Yahweh. You don't sound like somebody who would say Yahweh. You don't sound like somebody who would say Yahuwah. You don't sound like somebody who would say Yahashua. Right? I'm so proud of the fact that you didn't fall for the okie doke, like those, like so-called, I know it's not the same apples to apples, but like we used to say about the African booty scratcher. No wonder you can't get along. The white folk don't know what an African booty scratcher is. Technically, we don't either, right? But we just said it. We were so up against each other. We were proud to be able to say that somebody that looks like us, talks like us, acts like us, walks like us, and might even know more about where they come from than us. We were so proud to denounce them because we were better than they were. Same as in the spirit. You can't wait to be able to put on your hat. Not talking bad about your hats, but I'm just saying, some of y'all know you put on your hat so you can say, I'm not like them. I'm black, but I'm not like them. You so ready to be like, yeah, I can't wait to say Jesus, even though in the Hebrew characters and the Hebrew belief system and the Hebrew language and the Hebrew tongue and the Hebrew nation, there's no such thing as a just sound. There's no integrity, but we're supposed to be one nation. That's integrity. That's what integrated means. There is only one Lord, one faith, one baptism. There's only one over all. And persons get mad when we say this because we're coming into what we're supposed to do as a nation. Because you don't understand what Isaiah was saying. Because all you know is, no weapon formed against me, right, shall prosper. It won't work. But the whole thing goes, no weapon formed against me shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against me shall be condemned. I wonder, do you know, how does that end? No weapon formed against me shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against me shall be condemned. What does the next part say? I'll help you. It says, for this is the inheritance of Israel. So no weapon formed against Israel shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against Israel shall be condemned, because this is the inheritance of Israel. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I know. I'm just telling you the truth. I'm just telling you the truth. Am I lying to you? Am I coming out the scripture? Am I giving something? Am I making something up? Look it up for yourself. Any cap detected? Right? Put on your cap. You lock on your cap seeking missiles. Am I capping? Am I lying? Whatever you need to do, check it out. See, if we be the nation, hashtag we be the nation this year. If we be the nation, then we got to come and be strong as a nation, right? If somebody comes against America, everybody says, no, you're not coming against America. We're going to fight, right? If somebody comes against China, they say, no, you ain't coming against China. We're going to fight. Somebody comes against South Africa, they say, no, we're going to fight. Ibrahim over there in Africa right now, they say, no, we're going to fight. Sankara, no, we're going to fight. Lumumba, no, we're going to fight. Nkrumah, no, we're going to fight. Moses, no, we're going to fight. Joshua, no, we're going to fight. Christ, no, we're going to fight. I wonder why when it comes to this walk, where you'll fight. Malcolm X once said it like this. They say that we're not supposed to have any fight in us, no dog in us. We're not supposed to tell the truth, but and you're not supposed to bleed or defend your people, right? He said that it was disgusting, despicable, and he felt horrible. And I'm just using colonial terms right now, right? Colonial constructs, social constructs. He said he felt terrible as a black man to see black babies' body parts blown up out of a church, bombed just because of the color of their skin. He said, we say that we can't do anything and we must march peacefully and all this stuff. Now, once again, I'm not telling us that it's time to raise. I got to say that because if somebody will be like, Pastor Kofi said. So if you believe in me that much, then I also said, it's not time yet, okay? It's not time. Don't do it, all right? Don't do it, okay? That being said, Malcolm X said, you said you have no blood on your hands when it comes to them little babies. But at the same time, he said, but when they told you to go, across the Pacific, you bled, right? When they told you to go ahead and fight on behalf of them over in France, you bled. When they said fight against Hitler, you bled, right? When they said go over to Korea, you bled, right? When they said go to all these different places, you bled. But when it comes to your own people and when it comes to Yah, you haven't got no blood. And when he said that, I remember as a child hearing that and being like, ooh, I still brings tears to my eyes today because I'm like, I'm not crying, but it makes me teary eyed. It does something to me today because it's like, yeah, we got all this stuff. You can hear us talking about all this stuff, but even if it's not physical bleeding, right? Our sisters are saying they need help, and Israel is supposed to be one nation. And Israelite men are some of the worst perpetrators of taking care of our sisters. You ain't got no blood. But if it come time to be on them and to vote and to make sure you lift up their establishment and their system and do all this different stuff, all of a sudden you can bleed. When it comes to being red pill, all of a sudden you can bleed, right? When it comes to our sisters, making sure that they uplift our brothers and make sure that they know that, hey, we need each other. Not just only as so-called black men and black women, but as Negro, as Israel, as a nation. We need one another. And we'll do it for feminist movement, even though the feminist movement can't stand you. But when it comes for our own, you haven't got no blood. We have nothing to see any videos about that. Yahweh says, I'm trying to put my kingdom in earth, and you are the representative. You are the vessel to do so. When it comes to making sure you work your 9 to 5, you have not missed a day. But when somebody says, it's time to do the holy days, you haven't got no blood. We can't find you. When the scripture says, become a better person, you ready to be a better person for your job. You know how to talk well with them. I was speaking to somebody on Friday, I think. We were having a conversation and we were talking about some really serious stuff. And I asked a question, because we were talking about communication and stuff like that. And I said, you know what? Can I ask you a question, like real talk? I actually value your opinion on this, or I just want to hear somebody else speak outside of, just my little bubble I be in sometimes, because I be so busy on stuff that I really don't. I can easily dismiss stuff, and I apologize to my family because I know, they work with me because they know I be so busy in certain things and in my headspace and studying and doing this that sometimes I miss things. I shouldn't. I'm gonna get better, but I do sometimes still. Right. That being said, I was like, you know what? I just want to ask you something. I was like, we're talking about communication, and they brought up something like they said there's a difference between communicate. I hope I get this right. There's a difference between communication and conversation. And I said, oh my greatness, that's one of the greatest things I've ever heard. communication and I was like, yeah, because to converse doesn't always mean we're communicating. And if we're communicating and conversing should happen at the same time. But communication, we really dealing with like different intimacy levels and stuff too, right? So the person said that. I said, oh, I said that's powerful. But then I asked the question. I said, well, since you brought that up, I never really thought about that before. I was like, do you think it's that we cannot do these things? And they answered it very well too. But my question to them was, do you think that it is we cannot do these things, or do you think that it's we will not do these things? Because I know when I go to my job, because I respect the job or the money that's being given, even if I want to cuss everybody out, I will still smile and grit my teeth and do certain things, right, to make sure that they're treated with respect. But all of a sudden come home and I can just blow up. Or I know there's a lot of persons who say they can't respect their husband, they can't respect their wives, but then all of a sudden they go to their job and they find some way to do it. Right? Like, or we go to a church service and you can't respect your husband, you can't respect your wife, you can't respect your parents, can't respect your children. But then you get into the church and all of a sudden they deserve respect because your pastor or your congregation members might see it. And I was like, do you think? And of course, his response was very well put together and stuff like that. But ultimately the answer was like, no, we have we have the ability to be able to do it. But also too, there's a respect factor and things like that, right? See, if we don't know who we really are, we have so much blood on our hand for everybody else, but we have no blood on our hands for protecting, for keeping the kingdom. How you doing, LCB? We have so much blood, figuratively speaking, on our hands for everybody else, but we have no blood when it comes to keeping this law, this word. You said that goes against the Bible. Respect the persons is not of Elohim. Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm with you. My mind was in somewhere else. Okay, I got you. Yeah. So yeah, most definitely. So but it will do it. But especially, right? How much more so if somebody is a follower of the way, if somebody is down for us, if somebody's working with us, if somebody's putting in effort, if somebody's trying harder and harder, how much more so should we try our best to give the persons who are there with us this love that Christ says that by that love will men know that we are his disciples. Are we truly his disciples? Are we truly Yechad Sha'al? Are we truly Yechavadah? Are we truly who we're supposed to be? Matter of fact, if we fight for who we are supposed to be, we should be ready for the fight of those who have told you that they are you and are not. Did you hear that? If we are really who we are supposed to be, then know that you're supposed to be ready for the fight that those that say are you, they are you, and they're not, because they've been living off you. Matter of fact, forget just living off you. They've been living as you. Let's just call a spade a spade. They've been living as you. And by the way, some of it is stuff that you should have been doing, but you had that removed from your memorial lexicon. In other words, the things that should have been memorials unto you have become something that others are using. So you don't even, when you flip through the pages of your life, I know lexicon persons don't even use that stuff anymore, but when you go through these certain things or whatever, or I'm sorry, not lexicons, I'm thinking Rolodex. Rolodexes don't exist anymore. Right? But when you go through all these different things, you don't even have it in you to realize, like, wait a minute, we're fighting. Watch this. We fight over tithes or tribute and offering. We still fight. How much should I get? I'm not going to get blah, blah. Meanwhile, go to the Ashkenazi community and ask them or look around, see if anybody fights over that. See, some of this stuff is not as crucial or as hard as you want to make it out to be. And thank y'all for the love. Appreciate it. Some of this stuff is not as hard as you try to make it to be. If you go into their community, you better give. It's because it's what they do as a nation. Regardless of whether you feel like they're the artificial, the corporative version of us or not, I'm telling you, you go over there, there's law. There's no debate. Now, look, I'm not here to tell you, you better give or else you can't be part of SOC, because that's supposed to be something you do on your own. It's supposed to be of your heart. I'm not going to be the person that says, I need a $500 line here right now. That's not what I'm called to do. That's not what the Bible says. I'm not on that. Right? I do believe there are times Holy Spirit could lead somebody, but I'm pretty sure somebody can check me on this. I'm pretty sure in my life I've never said $500 line. You must line up, lock the doors of the church, all that. I'm pretty sure I've never done that. I'm somebody who knows me personally, not just on this virtual stuff. Some of y'all go way, way back with me or whatever, right? Some of you who know me, who just watch every once in a while, who knew me 20 plus years ago, you check the record, right? Right? Check the record. Right? Nope, they have their stuff and build it willingly, right? Yeah, we don't have to, right? It's part of the community. You give. Now, also, too, what they do in the community, which we're guilty of not doing, is that they also say, well, if you can give a tribute to us, we should teach you how to give a tribute to yourself. Can we teach you how to live off of 10% of your income? If it means even that we have to allow 3, 4 families to live together to get it together, but can we teach you and help you to get to a place to where you can live off of 10%? So giving 10% even at that big a deal. And if you give anything else, well, shoot, now you're just giving out of abundance. Uh-oh. Not lock those doors. You know what just happened. I don't have to say no names. Y'all know what just happened. Y'all know who I'm talking about. And by the way, that's between him and the Most High. I'm not going to say anything else about it. Right? It don't look great. But that's between him and the Most High. He's going to have to deal with that for himself. But see, if we had that integrity and coming together as these people. See, this is the issue with what's going on in Smyrna. In Smyrna, they have this issue with integrity being one. First of all, you got to agree to be one. Do you agree to be one? Salah. I'm going to ask the question again. Do you agree to be one? Oneness ain't just about to happen just because. There has to be some agreement. Remember, this word given to us in Revelation, this message given to the 7 assemblies, this what we're going to be going through for a while this year, hashtag We Be the Nation, Revelation series. We're going back to Revelation to revisit this again. We're looking at it from the perspective of being a nation. If we're going to be a nation, are you in agreement? This is an assignment. If anybody's part of this nation, it is your assignment. Yes, it is your assignment. And these were the low class. Yeah, and I'm telling you, like I've been to different synagogues. I've been to what they present as temples. We know they're not really temples, but things they present as temples. Even like a big one that's in what is it, 6th Street in Washington D.C. In the downtown area, whatever. I've been to some really places. I've traveled different places in the world, sat down on some people's feet, and I learned that one thing you're not going to have a problem with in their synagogue, even if it be the synagogue of the Satan, one thing you're not going to find a problem with there is effort, energy, talent, gifts, and yes, even finances, meaning even money being given because they believe in it. But we can't agree to be one. See, we can't even agree. Watch this. As one nation, if we can't agree what a woman is, you think we're going to agree on what to do with some money? One thing you're not going to find in the Jewish faith. There are some Jewish persons who have left the Jewish faith, but if you consider to be in the Jewish community of the Jewish nation, one thing you're not going to find is, hey, what's a woman? What's a man? You're not going to find it. So we can talk trash about it all day, but they got enough sense. See, we got to agree at least to the oneness. See, if we keep disagreeing on the word, they putting some Talmudic stuff in there and all that. I get it. I'm not saying that. Listen to the context. Listen to what we're speaking from. Hear what I'm saying. These cats will make sure. I ain't mad at it. They'll make sure that they uplift the kingdom as far as what they think it is. Here we are where we have the Most High with us and we original and have no original value of where stuff goes. And we'll make excuses for it, talking about, I even heard brothers talking about the other day, well, we weren't supposed to get tithes. It was only supposed to be off of your crop or off of this. No, it's not. The first tithe, the law first mentioned, the first tithe mentioned in your Bible is Abraham. What you talking about? In Abraham, he gave the tithe, right? It's not the first time a tithe was probably given. It's the first time it's mentioned, though. And Abraham gives the tithe to who? To Melchizedek. Who is Melchizedek? He is the high priest of Canaan. He lives in the place of the king of Shalom, right? Where we will go later and have a place called Yahada Shalom or Jerusalem, right? He's the king of Salem, the king of peace, the king of Shalom, right? The king of Shalom. So that's why you call it Jerusalem or Yahada Shalom, right? It's Jeru. Shalom. He's the king of that. So later on, Yah will be the head of our peace. So he becomes the king of Shalom. That's why we now call it Yahara Shalom. He's head over our peace. But at that time, the high priest lived over there. And Cain, Abraham went in the land of Canaan to fight against five dictatorial type of rulers that were using their kingdoms to be able to take over all of Canaan. He defeats them so he can release Lot and those who have been enslaved with Lot. And then he goes immediately to find the high priest and do what? To give a tenth of all that he has. Not just food, not just when he felt like it, but to give a tenth. He was already rich, by the way. And he basically was the man. And even though he didn't have even his son yet, he had so many persons that came under him because they recognized the barak that he had, right? The promise that was upon him. They knew that anybody who baraked him would be baraked themselves. And so what did they do? They followed him to the point to where when he went to go to war against five kingdoms, he had so much that they defeated them. We don't even think about that with him. He could have just said, I defeated all y'all, this is mine. But what did he do? If it wasn't for Yah, I wouldn't have. So he gives it back to Yah. Of everything, a tenth of everything that he owned. I'm telling you, persons don't believe me when I say this stuff. When I say I'm all in, I'm all in. Look, when I was homeless, right? Never panhandled, but when I was homeless, might find some change in the street, and one of my boys might give me $1 that's in his pocket or something. For every $1 that I got, I went to an assembly somewhere. Somebody had to get 10 cents. Not gonna hold you. If I got chips, I saved about a tenth of them. Sometimes even, I'm not even joking. Some people think I'm lying. I'm not even joking. Sometimes would pour out chips and you can't get to the crumbs and stuff, but I might pour out chips and see how many of the big pieces were there and be like, I'm gonna save this for my boy later or something. And so while I was on the street, I was getting this stuff in order, right? When I was living out of my car, I was getting stuff in order. When I was doing a single dad thing, I was getting my stuff in order. So to this day now, when you see me give or somebody says this and that or whatever, this is a lifestyle. Some person say, how you get here, blah, blah. It must be because of the preaching. It must be because of this. What business did you do? Or what did you find about sovereignty? I was learning from the sovereign of sovereigns, who would later send his son, way greater than any tithe or sacrifice or offering I could give, or first fruits or whatever you want to do, way greater than any of that. I was learning from him how to give, and I would watch that, hey, if I give a tenth of fruit to somebody, somehow, some way that turns into, right, something else. Matter of fact, for my family, even sometimes when I don't have it, right, but I know I've given to a certain amount of persons, I will make sure that I give something equivalent to 10% of what I've gotten, just to make sure that they're receiving something. And when I do it, as much as I'm like, ooh, and I got to be led by the Holy Spirit, by the way. I'm not just doing stuff randomly, right? But when I do it, I've realized that every time I do it, Yahweh gives me increase. How you doing, Wakanda? Right? He gives me increase. I know. See, persons don't want to hear that. See, because that sounds like I'm trying to take from your pockets. I'm not even a lot of you guys. Some of you guys. I'm not even everybody's pastor who's on here. I'm telling you where you go. I'm telling what it is. Because see, here's the wild part. Wherever you sow, right? Whatever you sow is that what you shall reap. How is it that you got enough money to sow? Some of you go to a restaurant every day for lunch, and are sitting up here somehow now coming up here talking about, I don't understand how our people can't thrive, or how we're not getting this and how we're not getting that. Right? Some of us don't catch it. We really don't understand. Right? Like, here it is, we don't give. Somebody on the street corner needs some food. Some of y'all making $300 a day, acting like giving that cat $2 to $3 is going to change your life. If you make $300 in a day, some of y'all after taxes, some of y'all got it like that. $300 a day after taxes, right? Somebody need $3. And you sitting up there acting like it's too much, or they're going to put it in their arm. You don't know what they're going to do with it. And even if so, let Yah judge them. But if you get in this conversation about should I give to somebody, it's probably not just a conversation you having by yourself. It's a conversation you might be having with the Holy Spirit. Give them something. And if you doubt so much that they're not going to use it for what they say they are, then fine. Take them to the food place. Or if you don't want them to get in your car, you feel like you're above walking with them, you don't want to touch them, whatever. Okay, cool. Ask them what they want. Go buy it and give it to them. See, if we won't do it to the least of these, our brethren, y'all know the rest. What you do to the least of these, your brethren, you also do unto Yahweh's brethren, you do unto Christ. You're so busy trying to keep the money, not realizing that you're supposed to keep the law. See, this is when it gets into a place where you don't want to hear this part. Because yes, it is pointing out those who say they are us and are not. But if you're supposed to be them, if you're supposed to be that guy, if you're supposed to be the man, if you're supposed to be the woman, if you're supposed to be Israel, if you're supposed to be a keeper, how is it that you don't keep what others keep and then you upset at them for saying they're you? They wouldn't have a spot to be you if you was doing it yourself. Remember, the curses that are upon us are not because of the Ashkenazi. The curses that are upon us is because of our disobedience. Malachi chapter 3. You know what's interesting about Malachi? Or really it's actually called, or Malachi is actually called the burden of the word of Yahweh. And it was written by Malachi. That's actually Malachi chapter 1, verse 1. It tells you the name of it. So even talking about this is a burden to our people because they don't want to hear it. The whole thing about Malachi is saying that he loves you, but you keep trying to be like Esau. That's the real for real conversation. Read it. We went through that as a series already, right? Y'all might recall the very first thing that pops up in there is, hey, this word is a burden to give to my people. Yahweh told me to give it to you, though, so I'm going to give it to you. And here's the thing that we do from the beginning. Yahweh says that he loves you, and you say, how could he love us? And he says, well, my love starts with the fact that you have a twin brother that came out the womb, but I've always loved you, and I've always hated him. But we want to be like the brother who is not under the promise, the brother who has decided to attach himself to the brother that's not of the promise. We've tried to attach ourselves to Kemet more. We've tried to attach ourselves to so many other things. See, we think Esau means white. You forget that Esau, we know who he married into, right? We know he also didn't marry into the Syrians, which would be the persons who are of his grandfather. I'm sorry, of his father. No, of his grandfather, of his father, of his mother. Like we don't talk about that. The same person be of Israel, right? And his great grandfather and his great grandmother. We don't hear any of that. We just go, he white, forgetting that Esau then moves down after the promise and the Barak are taken. He then goes down to Kemet, right? And when he goes down to Kemet, he goes down there, and when he goes down to Kemet, he goes down and he marries into who? Ishmael, who had left Israel, right, or Hebrew, right, left Abraham, right, was told to leave, but had left and was down now being raised in Kemet. So you guys talk about black, white, this and that. Once again, not knowing what nationality is. Now, are there some Gentiles that will have, even through the book of Joshua, could we trace and track that there are some persons who became that? Sure. But don't forget that some of the African tribes and some of the most famous, like the Maasai and others, they are actually Esau. I know you don't want to hear that because it goes against the whole thing of black versus white. He said my job wanted me to give the angel tree. And I said no. I'd rather give to others that are in a worse way. Yeah. He said that child on the Christmas angel tree is going to be okay. Yeah, for real, right? And I apologize. I know we were supposed to talk about some of that too. I never recalled you. I apologize. I don't know if you got the text. I hope I sent it out to you and Double OG, but I tried to send it out. So my apologies, by the way. I don't know if I ever directly said that to you, right? But I praise y'all for you and you making those decisions, right? So we don't want to hear this, but we are the reason we were cursed. Now, there are others who took advantage of the curse. We have a conversation there for sure. But we're not going to pretend that we were cursed because of the Ashkenazi. I know you want. I know it's. Look, they take advantage of it, and they don't want you to ever know who you are, and they do not want you to come out of the curse. But do not forget that they understand. See, they understand that you are cursed, but they also understand that you are cursed because of you. And we don't like it because they'll say it in a very so-called racist way. They'll say it in a very bigoted way, where they'll come up to us and they'll say, well, you guys are the problem, and look at what you do in your community, and da da. They're right. But they're not going to tell you that they're hiding who you are and living as who you are and telling you that the same things that they do are some of the things that you should be doing. We're so busy being against them that we don't want to do anything they do, as if everything that they do is something that is not in the Bible. Yeah, we've been misled by leadership too, of course. Right? But we've been misled by personal decisions. We've been misled by persons who are our parents. We've been misled sometimes by our flesh. All of it. Right? Do you know that in a so-called Ashkenazi Jewish house, that if somebody gets a new home, guess what they do? They have the priest come by and they make sure that it's clean and they make sure it's prayed over. Now I know some of us might think that that's the worst thing ever. I don't know why, but that's something that's not wrong. It's righteous to make sure that you have a clean or lawful place for the Most High to be. One of the first things that they do, right, when a child is born. Now I know Talmudic stuff, and not all of them do Talmudic stuff either. We kind of just label that with everybody, right? That being said, I know Talmudic stuff is a little different. So granted, I'll give y'all that for those of you who are already ready for that argument. Val can be nasty, some of them do, right? They're doing some of the stuff the Roman Catholic priests do. That being said, they make sure them boys are circumcised. All right? Guess what they do? We get mad at them all we want. But guess what? They teach them what a man is, they teach them what a woman is, and at age 16, bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah, which is supposed to be when you be of a legal age, you're supposed to answer things about the law to what is considered to be, required knowledge by a panel that will be put in front of you, who are all leaders and priests. And then you will also receive a bunch of finances, a bunch of money, a bunch of gifts to make sure that at age 16, you're already being put up. See, if we were to do something like that today, some might be like, you just trying to take. No, I'm not even talking about giving to your pastor right now. I'm not talking about giving to your assembly, giving to your church, but I'm talking about giving to literally the next generation. In our culture, we're supposed to make sure that by age 22, our sons can be given their inheritance. We'll look at somebody else and say, how dare they, and blah, blah. Okay, what are we going to do to start changing that? You say Adam and Eve, Father Abraham, but really no excuse. We're supposed to know the word for ourselves. Mm-hmm. You said we used to do that. It was important. People still ask me to pray over the home after we cleaned it out. There you go. Right? Some of these things still exist. We don't know where it comes from sometimes, but they still exist. But yeah, we used to take time out. That was, matter of fact, I'm glad you brought that up, Sister Sherry, because that wasn't something that I did as a Jehovah's Witness, but we did the first part of this. There's something that we used to call spring cleaning, right? Now, I know some people do that attached to the spring solstice and stuff, but we did spring cleaning. But a lot of persons forget you would do spring cleaning and then you would ask somebody to come over and pray. We used to ask persons, let's have somebody come over and pray. Or we would pray as a family. Now that we finished doing the spring cleaning, it's a new chapter, it's a new this, we just cleaned. Also, too, it's part of removing the leaven from our home. Same kind of context, same type of culture, same time frame, right? Like we had certain things that were there. But because, once again, we take more pride in being anti-Israel than we do being Israel, we can't wait that anything that's we can't wait to put it there, because we've been taught that that's what's up, right? And we have been given that as a stumbling stone of offense against our own community, against our own nation, against our own features. Called it an act of dedication. Yeah, we that was mandatory. Caribbean households used to do that. I don't know if it was just, to be fair, I don't know if it was Caribbean households in New York, or if that was, I'm assuming it's something that came over from the Caribbean, right? Puerto Rico, Haiti, Dominican, Cubano, right? A lot of cats from these places or whatever, Bahamas, you know, Trinidad and Tobago, they would do that every year, right? I had a babysitter when I was in Maryland, and she was Haitian. She lived underneath us in the basement floor of the apartment complex or whatever, and they used to do that. That was heavy. So when you would go over there, you know, you was either gonna clean or you're gonna get in trouble. I'm like, I'm just here to be babysat. No, no, no. We cleaning. Right? The whole house has got to be whatever, right? That was a big deal for them, right? It was because cleanliness, even you guys say the term, and I know we don't do God here, but you know, cleanliness is next to godliness, right? Because cleanliness is legal. We're not wanting that. Can we say that we'll make sure that we do this for each other? And when we clean up our act and do these things, we clean up our communities, we gentrify them, because gentrification is not a bad thing. You just think gentrification means that it's when so-called white persons make so-called black persons have to bow down to them, right? But what if you figured that seeing Hebrew characters on a fence was something that was positive, and you put it there? What if you decided the same way, if you go to Chinatown in Washington, D.C., you're going to see Hebrew characters even on the Starbucks, right? Even where the Wizards play and the Capitals play, you're going to see Chinese characters. Well, what would be wrong if we had, you know, so Chinatown, Israel Town, and you saw Hebrew characters, right? See, this is integrity. This is us becoming one. See, other persons are doing versions of what you're supposed to do. And granted, that's wrong. It's appropriation. It's a lie. It's not the truth. They're bringing Talmud into it sometimes as well. It's wrong. It's a lie. It is not the truth. That being said, though, why are we not doing this for ourselves? Why is it that you can take off for every worldly holiday, but you can't find time for Passover? And I'm not saying you got to come down to Tennessee. I'm legit saying, how is it that we have Passover? And by the way, if you with us, there ain't no. Oh well, I don't know when it is. Whether you have a calendar or not, whether you get a calendar, you purchase a calendar, or donate for a calendar, whether you donate and get a calendar or not, we put out the dates. We put them out in advance. We teach you guys how to make sure that through your rights, even as an American citizen, if you're still there, or even if you're going to be living privately or whatever, you have the right to go to HR and make sure that this is your belief system. If you need me to draw up something for you, to write something for you, to put it out there, I will do it. You can do it for your colleges. You can do it for your job. You can do it for your children's school. They are allowed to worship. That's one thing I'll give credit to the Constitution. If we know how to use it correctly, the Constitution be constitutional sometimes, right? Like we if we know how to use it, it is a tool. It's law. It's legal. It's more legalese too, right? But it's law. And we who know the law, greater than the scribes and the Pharisees, at least supposedly, should know how to use the law. And if those scribes and Pharisees inside HR, the scribes in HR, do not know the law, you're supposed to know it well enough to go in and tell them, actually, I know that's what you think, but according to such and such, code such and such, subsection such and such, right? You're supposed to be able to tell them, no, we need, I'm supposed to be able to go ahead and have my religious beliefs taken care of. And it shouldn't affect my paper. It shouldn't affect my degree. It shouldn't affect my babies. But once again, we have more blood on our hands to fight and scratch to lose a bunch of money. We say, oh, well, we're losing money. You losing all that money for Christmas? You losing all that money for Thanksgiving food? You losing all that money for Easter? You losing all that money for the greatest Halloween costume ever? You take a whole bunch of time out to get that candy just right. And to make sure that that witch cackles as persons pass, going up to the thing. And to make sure that you go to the best of the best, whatever they call those places, scary houses, Halloween house, I don't know what you call them, right? Whatever they call them. You can't wait to get the best of the best of the best. But when it comes to the kingdom and somebody says, hey, even if you can't come physically, sometimes we be in your town. And sometimes SOC members be coming together in your town too. But that being said, over here, we make it very plain. And there's a lot of persons now who's being very plain. Hey, these are the dates. You can get on virtually. If we're not going to do what the word says, we can't just say, oh, yes, because of everybody else. Because guess what? Even though they're not doing it righteously all the time and they're not doing it the same way, Ashkenazi, they're going to Passover. It's Passover time. Shut the city down. I'm not even playing with you, right? Like, I'm in Bmore, I'm in Baltimore, and not that far from where we are, there are certain cities that are all Jewish. And when it's Sabbath, you already know they're gonna have on the tzitzits, right? They're going to have on there's certain type of clothes, right? They're going to have their hair a certain way. They're going to make sure they're not in their vehicles. They're going to have certain, and I'm not even saying all this stuff is necessarily 100% accurate, but they're not going to do certain things because they don't do it. If it's Passover, you know it's Passover, right? Passover time, they're getting their lamb together. They're getting it on the fourth day, or 4 days before, rather, excuse me. Right? They have it chosen. Some of them even get it slaughtered or whatever. Right? We look at this stuff, and I'm not saying, once again, I'm not giving excuses. What I'm saying is, as though we have a bunch of excuses when we're supposed to be them. If they lie and say that they are us and they are not, then the question is, why are you not being who you're supposed to be? Right? If we're saying that they doing all this stuff and they're not that, but then when we look at it, hey, they tied. They have their lamb together. They got their tzitzis on a certain time. And by the way, that's not necessarily a biblical thing. But I'm just saying, there are certain things that they make it clear. This is who we are. Their money circulates amongst each other. They support each other's businesses. They'll live with each other if necessary. They go by the word. You got to go into your Torah, but this much at least in your own home. You got to show up to the synagogue at least this many times. You have to make sure that you recite this and recite that or whatever. You have to. Or you're not right. And we don't like that, but then here comes Leviticus chapter 23, verse 29, where it says that you can be utterly cut off when you don't follow what Yahweh says about the holy days. Matter of fact, with the book of Leviticus, I was talking about this the other day. I still like him to listen to him from time to time, kind of starting to get on my nerves because, his excuses for not being righteous are just getting too much. He's just getting out there, he's trying to make that money. It is what it is, right? But Kevin on stage, Kevin Fredericks, right? What I don't like about him is when he changes the word. If you just come out and be like, hey, I'm going to just say and do this, y'all just not deal with it. I would actually be like, all right, because that's not hypocritical. I mean, it is, but it's not. But when you come out and you go and find a sister who is somebody who's so anti-Christ that she made it a point that, because remember, the priesthood, the Levitical priesthood is what Christ is part of, right? He's in the lineage of Melchizedek. So they all had to keep the same thing. So here comes somebody who's so anti-Christ, so anti-priesthood, that you brought her on your show just so that she would tell everybody that Leviticus was not written to Levites. See, that's why that's why Romans chapter 9, verse 6 says not all Israel is Israel. By the way, I'd like to show that to you just in case somebody think that I'm making stuff up off the dome, right? Leviticus chapter 1. This sister came on his show. He had to come on the show. I ain't lying to you, big bro. Had to come on the show specifically just to say, and this is years ago, right? This is just something that's always like stuck in my craw. This is years ago. Had to come on the show, and her whole thing was to make sure that she told the whole world, at least those who watch the show, hey, Leviticus is not written for us. It's written to Levites only. But if I may I take you to Leviticus chapter 1? Is it all right if I take you to Leviticus chapter 1? Matter of fact, we'll read verses 1 and 2. Would that be all right with you? Even if it's not, I guess you're just gonna have to you're gonna have to listen. All right? You're gonna have to hear. Hopefully you shema and not just listen to be ready with a retort. But Leviticus chapter 1, verses 1 and 2. See, we got so-called Israelites who should live a certain way and have gotten to a certain level and should be helping us to take care of our people, and instead is trying his best to change what the word says. Look, if you ever see this, Brother Kevin and Sister Lissa, right? Sister Melissa. I don't know if I'm allowed to call you Lissa unless I know you, right? So, Brother Kevin, Sister Melissa, there's a lot of stuff that I'm so proud to see you guys do, and so-called black love and all that stuff that's in it, whatever. Like, I'm really, like, there's a lot of great things that you're doing, and there's stuff that I even have studied that you guys have done and incorporated some of the things you've done on social media. I still am really, really raw with some of those things, but there's things that I've seen, I'm like, yeah, you should definitely do this and blah, blah, right? But we're not going to change the word. So if this, I'm a small little whatever, but we're not going to change the word. So Leviticus chapter 1, verses 1 and 2, right? It says this, it says, and Yahweh called unto Moses, okay? So he called, that means he invited Moses in. He called unto Moses and spake unto him out of the tabernacle of the assembly, saying, what does he say in verse 2? Right? What does he say in verse 2? Speak unto who? The children of Israel anybody who's Israel, and say unto them, if any man of you bring an offering unto Yahweh, etc., etc. And then he starts going into all the laws, which means that who is he talking to? Anybody who is Israel, especially if you're a Christian, like Brother Kevin is, you should be somebody who thinks that you are Israel now, and that anybody who comes into the knowledge is Israel. So this law that was given to Moses, who is a Levite, right, was given unto him to tell anybody who is Israel in the kingdom. Period. So anybody who says that Leviticus was written only to the Levite is somebody who now, once again, can I just go back to something we already quoted? I'm not going to line upon line, precept upon precept, but just quote, we quoted it already. Anybody who disagrees with that and says that this law is only for the Levite, even though it's for all the children of Israel, then you're somebody who's lying on your own Messiah. See, this is why he can't be everybody's Messiah. Somebody said this girl said he's her Messiah, and Kevin says he's his Messiah, but he can't be, because according to them, their Messiah says in Matthew chapter 5, verse 20, that you should know the law greater than the scribes and the Pharisees. So even if the Pharisees are supposed to know this, and the scribes and the Levites, the priests are supposed to know this, you need to know the law greater than them, not because you necessarily need to decipher it or translate it greater. You need to know what it says so nobody can come to you and start trying to translate something that doesn't even exist. Stop. They got that wax. Need that wax removal from that SBS. Right? So I'm just saying, somebody's out there giving us this weird stuff, and we are supposed to be the one who shall believe our report. Something should pop up in us and say, no, enough is enough. Enough is enough. Right? Stop lying on the word just because you don't want to follow the law. Once again, I would have more respect. This is when we get to that, when we get to the 7th assembly, eventually the assembly of Laodicea, right? That'll probably be in like a couple weeks, something like that. Or maybe at the end of next week, probably. Excuse me. But when we get there, and it'll say, I wish I knew whether you were hot or cold. I wish I knew if you were hot or cold. Right? Because you go back and forth. You go back and forth. You this one day, you that this. You say you believe this. You say you believe that. I wish you just look. If you would just stand up and say, man, you know what? I know the Bible said that, but I'm just not going to do it. We would have more respect for you. He said, stop pointing our fingers to them and get one. Right? I'm just saying, we would have more respect for you if you would just be like, yeah, you know what? I say the N word all the time, and I still believe. I would be like, okay, we're closer. Because there's a whole bunch of brothers that be cussing and stuff like that. I can still hear what they say when they cussing. Right? I hope that they get better and they stop having as much profane language. But you cussing, whatever. Every once in a while, I slip up still. Right? It might be really far few between now, but every once in a while, yeah, I might drop a bomb. I hit my pinky toe. The first thing that I say is not Barak the Lord. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, there's sometimes that I might slip up and say, so I get it, right? But to be like, if you just don't want to say it, you just don't want to do it, then just say, I don't do that. Just say, I'm not there yet, or just say, hey, I'm not even trying. Okay, cool. I have respect for that, because now we have a basis of conversation, right? We can actually have an actual conversation where it's real, versus like, oh, when you need it to be holy, it's holy, but then when you don't, it's not. You say, is cussing a sin? Yeah. Profane language. Also, too, anything that curses somebody, be careful. You shouldn't just curse randomly, right? We're judged by every word, just like Yehovah. We make sure that we don't not live by bread alone, but by every word that's uttered out of his mouth, right? That was quoted, by the Messiah. He was quoting Deuteronomy when he said that, right? So same thing. We should be careful about every word, and there is profane language, but also cursing somebody. We have to be careful. You can speak curses on somebody and not even mean it. So that's why, so for example, I don't know. Am I allowed to be real? I'm gonna curse or curse. It's not really gonna be cursing when you get what I'm doing. But can I be real? I know pastors are supposed to be that, and I'm supposed to be separate to a certain degree from certain things. But am I allowed to just say a couple curse words? If not, I'll dress it up. But I feel like Holy Spirit wise, y'all probably need to hear it a certain way. I promise you, I won't do too much of it on your eardrums, but I don't know if that'll affect you if I do whatever. Okay. All right. So I'm not trying to. This is not me. I'm not saying go around say this stuff. And I know there's different words we can even use and learn in our lexicon. I just want to be real. Okay. All right. So bitch, bitch. Okay. Bitch is not a curse word if I'm talking about a female dog. Okay. I don't even sound right saying it because I don't want to say it. But right, bitch is not a curse if I say that female dog is a right. But if I say to a woman especially, but anybody, you a bitch, that's a curse. Why? Because I'm putting something upon her that is not righteous. Hold on one second. Sorry, I'll be right back. I'm not sure if this is still here or not. But yeah, so sorry about that. But yeah, so that so using it in the wrong way is a curse, right? Using it the wrong way is a curse. He's still there. Okay, sorry, we got a visitor outside. We got a visitor, a former pet that ran away and that lives around the neighborhood, but coming back from time to time. So I was letting elder mine know. We see a lot of times it comes up late. He comes late at night, but he's outside. He looking at me. Okay, okay. So hopefully she gets a chance to see him. He's outside. All right. Anyway, sorry. But yeah. Or if somebody says, "Now watch this ass." Yeah, cat. Cat we used to have as a kitten actually took it in, and then basically got out one day, and then like we couldn't, get to it before we went on the road again. So he grew up. But we haven't had a chance to see him in a while. So he's outside. He comes at night, so we'll see the cameras. The cameras pop up, and we get all these pictures of him. But he always comes at night. So he's actually out now. So I figured I'd let her know that he's out there or whatever. So he was a big part of the family for a while. Anyways, so I'm sorry. So yeah, so this word going from cuteness to now bluntness, right? This word ass, right? If you say somebody's ass, that's a curse, right? But if you're talking about a donkey, we're talking about what we're talking about. We're talking about something that's real, right? So even the way you use words, so somebody could get into the whole thing of, now I'm really not going to use the other words because I know some of y'all don't want to hear me say the S word, and definitely probably don't want to hear me say the F word and the MF word, right? The F word, by the way, is always a curse. The F word literally means that you're cheating with the king's wife and mother effer, even though it did mean something different beforehand in Greece and plays and stuff, to be honest. That being said, though, even though they didn't use the word mother effer, but, it there's an argument that can be made. But mother effort for us as a people, they used to put our people in breeding camps, and when we be in these breeding camps, we would have they would sometimes on purpose put a son with their mother and have them both blindfolded or have bags over their head, and then once they finished whatever they were doing, they would take them off and they would laugh at them, and the persons who participated would be horrified because even that much more humanity was stripped from her, right? So those are always curses. Now, you know what? That also sometimes can rhyme with spit or spite. Those are things that have to do with, those in particular are things that have to do with how you use it as well, right? So you use something like that, you're talking about, basically if you say you're essing on somebody, you call somebody a piece of S, you're speaking something over them. Right. So curses. So there are, we could argue is cursing a sin as far as in that regard. But cursing, basically, when we're talking about somebody cussing or cursing, right? To cuss somebody out, curse somebody out, is to really speak a curse upon somebody. So yeah, we should always be careful about every single word that is uttered out of our mouth. I'm done cursing or cussing, by the way. Thank you for allowing me an opportunity to do that, because I know that could be jarring if I just out of nowhere just started going, right? So thank you all for allowing me to be real just for a second to get that teaching moment in. All praises to the Most High. Hopefully that was not offensive to anybody. All right. I tried my best to make sure I did so in a non-offensive way. All right. Okay. So sorry about that. Hopefully that didn't shock anybody. Okay. Okay. I keep doing that. Okay. All right. So yeah. So when we get back to Revelation chapter 2, right? You don't curse working on your cussing. For every natural is unnatural. Yep. All right. So Revelation chapter 2, verse 9. I know thy works and tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich, and I know the blasphemy. Now I wanted to just hit this word again, because I know the blasphemy. Right, we got a little bit of time. I know it's past 11. We usually end at 11, but once again on Sundays we go a little longer. Not because, once again, because it's Sunday and we worship more on Sunday, we go longer because we got a little more time, right? And because I'm gonna give the rest of my family day anyway. So since we don't have anything left after this, we do a little extra. So I want us to go over this word blasphemy. Now we're gonna look over what the Greek word is, right? But also, which basically is what blasphema, I think it is blasphema. I was right. Yeah, blasphema or blasphemia, possibly even probably blasphemia, right? Blasphemy. What does it mean to be blasphemous? Now we're gonna talk about what they're talking about, but also we're gonna talk about as well the word, the truth. Okay, we're gonna talk about the truth, right? So there's denotation and connotation, right? We're going to look at even some transliteration stuff that's changing as well. So this word blasphemy, if you just go in Strong's Concordance, easier one than what we usually do, right? If you were to go into Strong's Concordance, that's usually the easiest one that most people agree on. So let's just go there. And we look at this word blasphemy, blasphemia, blasphemy. It means slander, detraction, speech that is injurious, or speech that injures somebody, right? It is to another's tabah or righteous name or their authority, right? It also is impious and reproachful speech, injurious to divine majesty. So if something is in divine majesty, if you are considered to be royalty and somebody is trying to belittle who you are, right? Through gaslighting, through straw man, right? Through Dunning-Kruger effect, maybe they don't even realize. Through skin color, through whether it's man or woman, right? Do we need men? Do we need women? Young or old? Your music ain't this, your music ain't this, right? All that stuff is actually considered to be blasphemous, if especially it's being used to denounce who you actually are. Believe it or not. Believe it or not. All those things can be considered to be blasphemous, right? But I want to look up these terms. So if you're in Strong's Concordance, I'm going to look up what these say. I'm going to look it up even in the modern, just to make sure that somebody can say, I'm going to look up these words. So what is slander? We're going to look up, what is slander? Definition of slander. Lawful definition as a noun, right? Because that's what we're focusing on anyways. The lawful definition of slander. So if they're saying they are you and are not, or they're trying to tell you that you are not you, or you were telling others that it doesn't matter who you are, who you were created to be, or who the Most High is coming to covenant with, you are committing blasphemy. It means you slander. What does it mean to slander? Well, it means it is the action of crime of making a false spoken statement damaging a person's reputation. So if you commit blasphemy, it is the action or crime. It is breaking the law. It is the crime, right, of making a false spoken statement damaging someone's personal reputation. So when somebody says, I am not Israel, as far as Yahweh is concerned, you are speaking blasphemy. I know somebody don't want to hear that, but that's what it says. Does your Bible say something different? Revelation chapter 2, verse 9? I know the blasphemy of those who say they are you and are not. So if somebody says that I am not who the Bible says I am, if somebody says that I am not who history says that I am, if somebody says that that doesn't matter anymore, then that is blasphemy. If it's blasphemy, then it is slander. And if it is slander, it is the crime breaking the law, the crime of making a false spoken statement damaging a person's reputation. The ninth commandment. There you go, right? But if we're not supposed to obey the law, they say them commandments don't. You see how that works? And I'm sorry, Sister Allison, if I missed it, I'm not sure if you put it up when I was saying I didn't know exactly what I was talking about at the time. Please forgive me. All right, I just realized I never came back and said I apologize if I didn't do so. Right? So that's the first part. We're gonna stay right in Charles Concordance. What's the next part? It said detraction. Let's look up the definition of detraction. Detraction. Detraction is this. Watch this. Detraction is the act of damaging someone's reputation or worth, revealing negative information or faults, often out of envy or malice, lessening their esteem through criticism or disparagement. Can I say that again? Can I say that one more again? I like that. That's bars right there. For me, this is bars. This is like Kendrick hitting, this is like Kendrick to me, not quite, doing the victory lap yet, with They Ain't Like Us. This is like Kendrick for me, like when he starts off with, Dear Adonis, I'm sorry that man is your father. Let me be honest. This for me is like one of them bars like, ooh, this is rough for some. It's 11:11, baby. You see it, right? Watch this. Detraction is the act of damaging someone's reputation. I see you, Sister Mignon. Thank you. Detraction is the act of damaging someone's reputation or worth by revealing negative information or faults, right? Often out of envy or malice, because they are envious of you or they want you to go through malice, lessening their esteem through criticism or disparagement. Okay. All right. Here we go again. Here we go again. And how you doing, David? Here we go again. Let's keep on going. Now, here's the next one. Staying right there in Strong's Concordance. What does blasphemy mean? It means injurious speech or speech that causes injury. Okay. Let's look up. What does it mean? Right? Definition of injurious. They might not give us a definition, but we're still gonna put it that way. Injurious speech. Right in our Google machine. Right in our Google machine. What is the definition of injurious speech? Okay, injurious speech refers to how language is used to injure, judge harshly, watch this, repress, or punish a person. And utterance inscribes and re-inscribes power invested in discourses and how they are acted out. Once again, the first part though, injurious speech refers to how language is used to injure, judge harshly, repress, or punish a person. If you do this, it's blasphemy. Oh, so you want to hear that? You just thought I was gonna say, blah blah blah, black power. No. Let's talk. And it's done to somebody's Tabah name. It is also considered to be impious and reproachful. Let's just look up impious. Definitions. Ooh, I love this stuff. Definition of impious. impious. Right? The definition of impious is not showing respect or reverence, especially for the Most High. Come on, somebody, right? It's not, what is it? Not showing respect, right? Or reverence, especially for the Most High. That's blasphemy. Oh, we don't want to go down this path. See, I'm just saying, see, this is why we say, like, persons don't want to go deep into the book. The deeper we go, the more we see that this is our report, and our report is correct if we follow the word. Here's another one. It is reproachful speech. What is the definition, the modern definition of reproachful? I'm just going to our Google machine. I'm just going to the Google. Holy Spirit, have your way. Right? Here we go. Expressing disapproval or disappointment. You know, I'm disappointed in you, Kyrie, that you would say that person should go ahead and read and watch H2N. I can't even say it still. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say it still. When they broke that man down, because all he did was put a link up for if somebody wanted to watch it, go ahead and watch it. And because of that, somebody else said, I'm disappointed in you. They said, if you want to go ahead and play, you need to not only pay us to come back in. They said, you need to pay Ashkenazi groups money before we allow you to come back and play. And it was a lot of us who were the first ones to condemn him. It was a lot of us who were the first ones to say that he was wrong for saying he shouldn't take that jab. They didn't have to go to others. Because as much as we blame everybody for all the stuff we've ever been through, and I'm not saying there's not any kind of colonization that happened, right? Hear what I'm saying, though? We don't have to worry about all the persons you really be looking for to do it, because we do it to ourselves. Because we love to be a separate. It even says this impious and reproachful speech is injurious, right, to divine majesty. Would you like to look up? Let's look up divine majesty. Because if somebody is against us or against Israel being who they're supposed to be, and they're committing this blasphemy, then they are against our divine majesty. What is the definition of divine, or how could we look at it, divine majesty? Well, divine majesty refers to Elohim's supreme, awe-inspiring greatness, splendor, and transcendent power, encompassing his holiness, glory, and ultimate sovereignty, presenting him as exalted above creation and worthy of worship. If he is those things, but you say that what he says about his people is untrue, then you are antichrist. Because if you're against his divine majesty, you are blasphemous. And therefore, if you would say that Israel is not who Yahweh says Israel is, you are somebody who's against Elohim's supreme, awe-inspiring greatness. You are against his splendor. You are against his transcendent power. You are against his encompassing holiness. You are against his glory. You are against his ultimate sovereignty. You present him as something other than his being exalted above creation and worthy of worship. This is why when Revelation chapter 3 verses 7 through 9 will say the same exact thing just about. When we get to that, that's going to be later on in the series. But it will say almost the same exact thing, but it will say that persons will need to come and sit at our feet to learn how to worship. And through this process, those who say that are us and are not, but are the synagogue of the Satan, it says that when they learn how to worship properly, he will show this system or the beast or the world that he has always loved us. Not because we're better than you because of how we look. It is because we were always supposed to be his chosen. Therefore, we were always his chosen. And everybody's trying to tell you that his word is not true. So now that you're learning the truth, guess what? Yeah, you're going to have to come back to the source. As Isaiah said in Isaiah 53, who shall believe our report? As Paul said in Romans chapter 10, verses 13 through 16, anyone who calls upon the name of Yahweh, they shall be saved. But how can you be saved if you don't believe? And how can you believe what you have not heard? And how can you hear what is not being preached? And how can it be preached if the preachers are not stood by the Most High? For their feet are beautiful when they walk in the way. So just as Isaiah said, he quotes Isaiah once again. He says, who shall believe our report? This is what's going on here. That it has been reported to you by persons who are trying their best to blaspheme against the Most High. And you have decided to follow blasphemers in their ways. But now that Yahweh is revealing to you that this was blasphemy the whole time, choose ye this day who you will serve. Hallelujah. I'm sorry, I got excited, but it is what it is. Sorry, not sorry. Who you going to choose? What you going to choose? I'm just giving you the truth. If your Bible says something different, tell me. I'm so serious. If your Bible says something different, feel free. But if the truth is for you, and sin is not for me, or not for you, then maybe we should allow the truth to go. Matter of fact, here's another thing about blasphemy. We're going to close in about 10 to 12 minutes. I promise. I'm pretty much almost done, believe it or not. Because the other verse is they just gonna flow like water. Now that we got this truth up in us. Blasphemy. Guess who else was blasphemous at one point? Yahada Sha'al. And guess who we were blasphemous against, or who we tried to accuse of being blasphemous? Who did we accuse of being blasphemous? Yahashua, Mashachi, our Messiah. That's what he was on trial for. That's what he died for. We tried to say he was blasphemous. What was our charge against him? Our charge against him was, now, fair, granted, the Pharisees charge against him, right? But the charge against him was what? Was blasphemy. Why did they say he was blasphemy? Blasphemy. Because he said he was Christ. Who is Christ? Who have we been looking for? Who is the son of David? Who is the son of Elacham? Right? Who is the anointed one? We knew who he was going to be the whole time. How you to subscribe? You should be able to hit the subscribe button in there. Should be a button on there that says subscribe, and thank you for doing so. Right? But, you know, or you can go to the main page and click it there if it's hard to find, but it should be on the device for you. Thank you for doing so. But he was considered to be blasphemous because he said he was Christ. Christ is supposed to be king of Israel. The only king of Israel we truly have is who? Really, Yahweh or Elacham. But he came in the person of what? In the manifestation of his son, right? This son who existed the whole time before the foundation of the world. Elacham, right? 3 in 1, leading us as 3 in 1. That's what Elacham means connotatively or in characters. That's what it means. So he came down. And it says, because we had made our own law, this is what the Bible tells us, we made the law of sin rather than the law of flesh. I'm sorry, the law of the spirit. And so we decided to change it up and make it about the traditions of our fathers rather than what Yahweh told us from before the beginning of the foundations of the world. And so he came down and he was a stumbling stone of offense unto us. He was offensive to us because how dare he come and try to set things straight? We are in charge, not you. And so we put him on the top. And we told Pontius Pilate, his charge was he said he was the king. If you don't recall this, Pontius Pilate, before Pontius Pilate, or Pontius Pilate as we say nowadays, before Pontius Pilate begins to talk, really I guess it'd be Pontius Pilate, but we say Pontius Pilate nowadays. Before Pontius begins to speak unto him, he did not talk when they got him. The last thing he said was when they said, we're looking for Christ. And then Judah, or who we call Judas, kisses him and betrays him with a kiss. And then once he's betrayed, right, and even that is powerful. Judah betrayed him with a kiss. I know that's a person, but look at the name, the reference, right? But Judas, right, Iscariot, betrays him with a kiss. He says, you betray me with a kiss? And then they asked like who it was. Like he did that after the question was asked, we're looking for Christ. Who's Christ? Y'all know who Christ is? And then, or who Yahshua is. And then he steps forward and says, I am he. Right? Then he's betrayed with a kiss. From that point on, he doesn't say anything else. As he's beaten, he's punched, brutalized, all this stuff. Before he even starts getting the scourging and all that, he's punished, right? He then decides, okay, I'm going to go ahead. And what I'm going to do is this. He says, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to, Pontius says unto him, they tell me you are a king, because that's what he's on trial for. Are you the king of Israel? That's what he's on trial for. That's what they're telling him is blasphemous. They're saying that he is trying to say that he is Yah on earth. Remember when they threw those things down on the ground, Hosanna in the highest, they're saying he is king. He is the king of the earth. And in their mind, even if for the person who wasn't a Pharisee, in their mind, if you're supposed to be the king of the earth, you're going to free us from Rome when he came to reestablish law. And a lot of us are in the same thing. We're waiting for the Messiah to come back or his word to come back or for teachers to come and tell us some things to say, hey, this is how we're going to beat up the United States. When the reality is freedom from Rome allows you to live sovereign and be free of it, right? To not stay in it. to get away from these wicked rules and stuff and get back to the word. That is the freedom. And when Yehoshua comes back, when we've preached that word throughout all nations, he's coming back for those who have remained clean and not intimated. You want to get your hands dirty in war, but not realizing that the battle is not yours, it is Yehovah's. Right? So they got mad at Christ. Right? Even if you believe that he was the Christ, they got mad because in their mind, he can't be the Christ if he hasn't come to put the smack down, layeth the smacketh down upon Rome and get rid of this whole thing. We just had defeated the Greeks in the Maccabean revolt, right? We had just finished doing that. Now we're under Rome, who we had signed a treaty for. He's going to get rid of Rome. And this time he said, no, I've come here to make sure I reestablish covenant. And so they said he was blasphemous because he wouldn't do what they wanted. And all of a sudden, Pontius asked a question directly. He says, are you king? They tell me you're a king. Are you a king? And all of a sudden, for the first time, after getting beat up all this, he says, it is as you say. In other words, he answered when they stopped blaspheming. Oh, somebody need to hear this. Israel, when we stop blaspheming, or we stop allowing persons to blaspheme, or we realize who we really are, right? He's ready to speak to us. He's been king the whole time. He was king when he was on the cross. He was king before he came. He was king when they were spitting upon him. He was king when they bruised him. He was king when they chastised him. He was king when he bled. He was king when he was in hell for you. He was king when he rose. He's always been king. He was king before you were ever thought of it were a gleam or twinkle in your mama's eye or your daddy's eye, however the expression goes, right? He was king before all that, and during all that, and after all that. He's never been off the throne. So when we address him properly, right? So when it talks about blasphemy, you need to comprehend when they said that he was blasphemous, they were saying he was one and the same as the Most High. When he said he was who he was, they said that's blasphemous because they said for you to be who you are, you're supposed to be who Yah said you were before the foundations of the world. That's why they try to call what you say blasphemous to this day. Because we're going back to what Yehovah said before the foundation of the world. And they're like, how dare you have pride in yourself? Remember, that's part of the modern definition of blasphemy. You recall we just went through all those definitions and the denotations and all the stuff that exists? Because how dare you and I say that we are more than conquerors when the word of the world, not the word of Yah, but the word of the world, who's at war with us, tells us that we are less than so-called white persons. And if you are a so-called white person who would dare join our nation, you are a traitor to your so-called race. See how they did all that or whatever? If you even go back to Yehoshua, when he's on the Tab, Pontius Pilate has in 3 languages written, here is Yehoshua, king of Judah, of Yehovah, of the Jews. And they say unto him, they come to him, they say, Pontius, real quick, can you please correct that? Can you say it says that he said he was king? And he says, no, leave it the way I put it. Because Pontius believed and touched and agreed, so much so that he told him, and Christ had to tell him, like, yo, this is not on you. And so that's why he took the bowl, right? He took the bowl in front of everybody, had the bowl brought before him. He dipped his hand in the bowl. It was supposed to be a way of cleansing your hands, right? He washed his hand, and he said, this is on y'all. He said, got nothing to do with me. He made it a point to do that because he was telling them straight up, hey, I believe. His wife had a dream about it. He had a dream about it. He believed him. That's why even the term Jesus comes about, because Jesus means half man, half Zeus. He believed that his earthly home was, or his home was not an earthly home. He was going back home. So therefore, he believed him to be a demideus, half man, half so-called God. So they said he was committing blasphemy because he said he was who the Most High said he was. Just like, remember, the Satan challenged him in the wilderness and challenged him on who the Most High said he was. If you really be the son of Elohim, turn this stone into bread. If you really be who you say you are, then jump off of the temple. You know that the angels will catch you, lest you dash your foot against the stone. If you really be, right? If you really want what's worthy of you, which is worthy of worship, if you're deserving of worship, just bow down to me and I'll give you what you're worthy of. When you challenge somebody and try to bring them down from what the Most High has called them to be, that is blasphemy. And so if the Bible says in the same manner in Revelation chapter 2, he knows the blasphemy of them who say that they are you and they're not, then that means that they are trying to say that we are not who the Most High says we are. That being said, Revelation, let's end it. Revelation chapter 2, verse 10. Fear none of those things. What does he say to us? Fear. Do not give reverence. Do not respect those things to the point where you don't move. Fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer, which y'all shall go through and even choose to go through. For the suffering of this present time is not worthy to be compared to the glory which shall yet be revealed in us. And the creature, other human beings are waiting on us to become manifested as the sons of Elohim, so they can see that it actually is possible to come out of the world. Romans chapter 8, right? Verses 18 and 19, our third affirmation. Revelation chapter 2, verse 10, fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison. Behold, my people, pay attention, my people. Some of us will go into prison, that ye may be tried. They'll try you to see who you are. And guess what? And ye shall have tribulations. Oh, I'm running out of time. I know we normally end at this time, and it's even late for a Sunday. Can I get 10 more minutes? Max. I'm so serious. Well, I'm going to take 10 more minutes. If you got to go, you got to go, right? 10 more minutes max, and then I'm out. All right, 10 more minutes. Because Holy Spirit told me this a while ago, and if I was about to be disobedient, I got to do what I'm called to do. I got to be obedient, all right? Give me 1 second. I need to look up something real quick, make sure I'm not lying. All right, but we going to finish up. Sorry about that. My fault. I just got to look up something real quick. My bad. I'm supposed to have this up already. Okay. Well, okay. I'm pretty sure I can't find the historical thing I'm looking for, but I don't have enough time. So so we're going to do this, okay? So this 10 days piece is crucial. It's not the only thing, and because I don't have the verses in me like I need to have them, I hope this doesn't leave shaky, but I got to at least put this out there. You can do some research for yourself, all right? Revelation chapter 2, verse 10, it talks about 10 days. All right? Now, 10 days, if you guys don't know, right, there's 10 toes on 2 feet. Now, somebody said, what in the world does that got to do with price of tea in China? If you know Daniel chapter 7, it's important, Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7 and Revelation chapter 12 and Revelation chapter 13. And then Revelation 17, 18-ish, somewhere where the beast is shown again with the great harlot upon him. You'll understand that 10 is extremely important. The 10 horns and 10 toes, and if you know about Daniel chapter 7, there were 10 city-states, right, or that were against Rome. And Rome was split into 2 feet. 10 toes, 2 feet. So you'll see that Rome is split into 2. We're going to go over this in the series later on, but just to kind of give you a heads up, just so you know where I'm going with this 10 days thing. And during this time, Rome is split into 2. This is 538 AC. So you'll see Justinian is the Roman emperor at this point. And Justinian and Theodora, very famous couple. Also persons of color, right? So we sat upon the throne too, so to speak. Right. That being said, the eastern side of Rome, right? The eastern side of Rome, Justinian says, I'm going to take that. That becomes the Turkish Empire, Ottoman Empire. Matter of fact, that's where we're dealing with these 7 cities. That's actually the eastern side of Rome, Orthodox Christianity, right? So we're mixing and matching clay. We don't often think about, nor do we really even study what Orthodox Christianity is. But we're dealing with Orthodox Christianity right now that's coming into place because that's the eastern side of Rome where Israel is, right? But you deal with the western side of Rome, that becomes what you call the Roman Catholic Church. Well, the first pope, who wasn't called a pope then, he was actually the Bishop of Rome. By the way, for those that are Roman Catholic, I know you've been taught a lie that Peter is the first pope, but Peter was not the pope. The Bible doesn't say he's the pope, and Peter was married. Okay, so Peter is not your first pope. The first pope would have been 538 AC, which you would have called the Bishop of Rome. He is given power over Western Rome, and therefore he has all the power on that side. But when Justinian leaves, he gives a promise. He says, hey, I know persons might try to get against you thinking we weak and stuff. I have most of the army with me. That being said, if you need help, let me know, and we'll come and wax anybody to try to come against you. There's 10 groups that come, like we would call them today, the Spanish, Germans, even though German's a little different than what we think, but Spanish, German, Russian, uh, English, not so much the French, even though there were French. So I guess we could say some French, but not where France is. There's different groups that come against them, right? That end up being 10. Daniel chapter 7 tells us that there are 10 horns, and 3 of the horns are plucked out by one bigger horn who comes up and speaks many blasphemies, right? So, so basically, you have 10 countries who fought against, right? We now know the modern names, but back then, they were Gallic, and they were against Rome, and they were trying to defeat Rome, especially now that they felt it was split. The Bishop of Rome, the Pope, sends word to Justinian. Justinian keeps his word, sends 3 legions. It's a little less than, but we think of it as 5,000 per legion. So about 15,000 men, really a little less than, but about 15,000 men would have shown up, and they basically beat the brakes off of those who fought. Seven of them, when they heard word that they were sending them, 7 of the countries that still exist today, 7 of those nations backed off. 3 of the nations fought to the death. They were offed, right? And one, the Bishop of Rome, right, the Pope, one rose up out of that, having power, speak many blasphemies. What kind of blasphemy would he speak? What does blasphemy mean? He speaks against Israel. You have the Crusades. You have the doctrine of discovery, right? You have all these different things. And they tell persons that we, the Christians, the New Testament believers, are the real Israelites because Israel back then messed up. And since they messed up, Yahweh's word doesn't matter for them anymore. Let's give Balaam doctrine and let's go to war and say that everything that's supposed to be of Israel actually belongs to us. See, the mixing of iron and clay and doing all this stuff is not just talking about only those who say that they are Jewish, but there are plenty of others who are saying that what belongs to you actually belongs to them, right? To the point to where we don't even think to look at Bibles or make sure that we do Bibles according to our culture anymore. We're looking for anybody and everybody to approve it before we do. So when we get to these 10 days, all praises to the Most High, it's important that we must recognize that persecution, and it's not just only a 10-day quick event. It's not like even a literal 10 days. Remember, even we're talking about 10 days and putting it on 10 horns, and also Yom. Yom is a period of time. So there's 10 periods of time that we go through. Now look at how this works. 10 periods of time. Was there a period of time where we had to deal with the Spanish? Yep. Is there a period of time we had to deal with Portugal? Yep. Is there a period of time that we had to deal with those 3 Gallic branches that are Gallic nations that gotten rid of? Yep. Is there a period of time we had to deal with the Russians? Yep. Is there a period of time we had to deal with the French? Yep. Is there a period of time we had to deal with England? Yep. Like we can keep on going, right? We see this stuff is there. And we're going to go through all this. We're going to deal with that. But through it all, and by the way, we're coming at the end now, right? They done ran out of nations. So if we go through the tribulation, 10 days, if we go through the tribulation and what it takes to come through, if we let the 2 olive trees do what they're supposed to do, the teachings of Moses and the teachings of Elijah and the spirit that's upon them and the transfiguration that brings them together with Christ and his teachings, we don't separate them. They're all together, working together as one. There's the same teachings, the same law. If we allow those things to happen, right, and we be faithful, this is what it says at the end of Revelation chapter 2, verse 10. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life. Be thou faithful. What? Even if they try to take our lives. And this is when it gets serious, right? This ain't for play. This ain't my play cousin. This ain't this ain't for play. This is real talk. They are going to try to take our lives. We say, for Elohim I live and for Elohim I die. We're going to find out. And I say that all the time. It might mean I might have to be one of the first ones. But we're going to find out. And obviously I wouldn't be, because we've had many who have lost their lives in this. I'm just saying, we're in the modern time to where, hey, you say that you want to teach history, right? They took it out of schools. They taking persons offline. It's only a matter of time before they have a law to where, hey, well, we give you what we're giving you now. Hey, Pastor Kofi got to get locked up. We'll see. Now, I pray that we be protected. We pray that his peace be upon wherever we are, but we might have to preach this from a separated place where we have our own people to watch after us, and they can't just come through and police just throw you in jail for just anything. We need that for all of us. That's why we need to work on this stuff, right? So fear none of those things which thou suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that ye may be tried, and ye shall have tribulation 10 days. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee what? A crown of life. Verse 11, he that hath an ear, this ain't for everybody. He that hath an ear, Shema, he that hath an ear. We don't expect everybody to hear this, or to go with this, or to be obedient to it. Only he that hath an ear, let him hear. Ravak saith unto Kodescham, he that overcometh shall not be hurt of the second death. And if you don't get the second death reference, you got to go to Revelation chapter 20, verses 11 through 15. I'm keeping my word. I'm done. Revelation chapter 20, verses 11 through 15. When you get a chance, read through it. What you'll discover is that when it comes time for judgment, there'll be a second death, right? Most of us will have to experience the first death. We got to die. But then we'll be brought before the throne. The second death is when the Satan, his imps, hell, and even his followers are thrown into the lake of fire. We don't want to experience that, right? And you'll be judged. And according to Revelation chapter 20, verses 11 through 15, it says that there will be a book, there will be books or scrolls that are open, and they will look at what you've done in your life to see if you might have messed up here or there. That's why you need Christ's blood, right? But they'll be looking to see, did you follow the law? Did you at least attempt to? Were you doing what you were supposed to? And if they don't see that your works don't match what you said you had faith in, you got to be thrown into the lake of fire. That means your works are important. That's why he keeps saying, I know thy works. And now it's time to repent. If your works ain't been correct, turn from your wicked ways, that he might hear from heaven and heal our land. Amen? Amen. Hashtag we be the nation. All right, love you all to life. You all take care. Continue to do great things. I'm excited. I'm grateful for you. I'm thankful for you guys. We're going to do a shout out, quick shout out, and then I'm going to go ahead and enjoy my family today. And hopefully you guys do the same. Enjoy your families, enjoy yourselves, right? Take care of your mental health, all those things. Continue to pray for each other and lift up one another. We're thankful and grateful for you all. If you want to join us on TikTok for the shout out, if you've never done a shout out with us before, just stick around. We'll explain how it works. To everybody, tada, once again, tada, my shapachi, we love you. We honor you. We appreciate you. We give our honor and praise to the Most High. We give our praise and honor to him for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. To the moderators, Minister of South, SOC, Lottie Dyer, and everybody, thank you so much. And also, a reminder, we will be back, or we'll be on Early Rise Bible Study session tomorrow. And then we'll be right back into this, dealing with Pergamos tomorrow. So we thank you again. Thank you for attending. Thank you for being with us. We really appreciate you. We will finish up. We'll finish up. Yeah, I'm sorry. And so tomorrow we'll do that. We'll have a couple days off. And then when we come back on Thursday, it'll be Q&A. Right? So we'll do Pergamos, all that. And then we'll go into Q&A Thursday, Friday. For whatever questions, comments, or concerns you guys may have. If we haven't answered some already. All right, so love you lots. Thank you again for your attendance. Thank you, sisters, for women's meeting on Friday. Thank you, brothers, for men's meeting last night. From what I hear, both were amazing and excellent. I was part of one, but I wasn't part of both. And we're going to continue to move forward in what Yahweh has. So once again, thank you. And remember, as always, beloved, that you are loved. You're necessary. You're majestic. You're fearfully and wonderfully made. And you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom. Take care. Peace. Thank you so much.